Lana and I met during our final year at college, and were immediately drawn to one another. She had thick auburn hair, striking green eyes, a captivating face, and a slender, agile body with long legs and medium-sized breasts. To me, she was perfection. But what truly captured my heart was her personality: intelligent, cheerful, and full of humor. We could talk for hours about anything and everything. We were best friends, and after 3 months together, Lana and I became intimate for the first time in the back seat of my old Ford, parked behind the city's main sports arena. It was a clumsy and awkward moment, but it was the brightest moment of my life. She even cried, assuring me it was from happiness, not pain. I'll never forget her words when we finally shared that first connection. "Oh, Scott, we did it." From that moment on, I was certain Lana and I would be together forever, so I thought for the next 10 years. My name is Scott Martin, though most people call me Scotty. I was born and raised in a small town in Ohio. I stand at exactly 5'11" and weigh 185 pounds. With my blue eyes and dark brown hair, I'm often told I'm quite handsome. By profession, I'm a contractor. I own a small company with a steady team of 5, specializing in high-end interior remodeling. Lana is a music teacher at the local high school, and together we made a very comfortable life. We have a lovely home, and since we were both in our mid-30s, we were planning to start a family soon. The first 10 years of our marriage were wonderful. Our life was blissful, though I won't exaggerate and say we were intimate every day, more like 2 or 3 times a week, but it was always filled with love and often passion. We had an unbreakable rule: we hugged each night. And every morning I woke up amazed at how lucky I was to have her as my wife. I could honestly say that I would have given my life for her without hesitation. But then something happened that shook me to my core, something so unexpected and emotionally devastating that I still haven't fully recovered. As a contractor in Ohio, most of our work happens in the warmer months: spring, summer, and fall. Winter is too cold for people to want their homes disrupted. Because of this, the vacations Lana and I took were usually around Christmas, New Year's, or spring break. In the summer, while I was busy working, Lana would sometimes take a week off to visit her parents, go on a shopping trip with her 2 sisters, or take a summer class to keep her teaching credentials up to date. Every winter, we made it a point to escape to somewhere warm. So, in the winter when everything fell apart, we chose an all-inclusive resort in the Bahamas for 2 weeks in paradise, hoping to reconnect in body and spirit. However, I quickly realized how mistaken I was. Before we boarded our flight in Cleveland, I had no idea on it that anything was wrong with our marriage. If someone had suggested otherwise, I would have called them a liar. We were the perfect couple, deeply in love and connected in every way. It was as if we were one person. But I had forgotten about the existence of hell, and though I didn't know it at the time, I was standing on its edge, about to be thrown into the abyss. The first hint that something was wrong came when we checked in at the Cleveland International Airport. The line was long, filled with people eager to escape the winter chill. As Lana and I waited to go through the scanners, I noticed a man in the next line staring at her. This wasn't unusual. Lana is a beautiful woman, and men often gave her admiring glances, but this was different. He seemed to be trying to get her attention. I watched out of the corner of my eye as he gave her furtive looks. Then, I caught Lana giving him a quick glance and a small wave, as if to say, "Not now." He smiled and nodded. My stomach turned. It was then that I realized they knew each other, though how well I couldn't say. This realization set off all sorts of warning bells. As we went through security, I kept a close eye on both of them, but there were no further attempts to make contact. I know I became very quiet, but Lana didn't seem to notice. Her mind was elsewhere. I hoped the man wouldn't be on our flight, but as soon as we took our seats, I realized I was wrong. He was seated about 10 rows ahead of us. Another odd thing was that Lana chose an aisle seat, which was unusual since she always preferred the window. When I asked why, she said her breakfast didn't agree with her, and she didn't want to bother anyone if she needed to use the restroom. I asked the woman seated in the aisle if she'd mind switching, and when I explained about Lana's upset stomach, she agreed. Normally, I have no trouble sleeping on planes, but on this flight, I was too anxious to sleep. I tried to pretend, though. I pulled my baseball cap over my eyes and tilted my seat back. I watched as Lana put her purse under the seat in front of her. After we were airborne, she glanced at me to make sure I was asleep, then got up and walked down the aisle to the restroom. As she passed the man's seat, she reached out to steady herself and lightly touched his shoulder. Another red flag. When she returned, they exchanged a few words, and he gave her a warm smile. As she sat down, I felt a pang of sadness, realizing that my perfect marriage was in danger. I spent the rest of the flight trying to make sense of what I had seen and hoping that this man wouldn't be on our connecting flight to Nassau. But as soon as we boarded, there he was a few rows behind us. Lana seemed to have recovered from her stomach issues and took her usual window seat. The flight was uneventful, and after landing, we picked up our luggage, rented a car, and headed to the hotel. Lana spent the drive typing on her phone. "Were you texting?" I asked. "Just my mom and sister, letting them know we arrived." I nodded, but suspicion gnawed at me. Our room was beautiful, with a balcony overlooking the ocean. As we unpacked, I decided I needed to assert myself. I walked over to Lana, hugged her, and kissed her neck. "You know how much I love you, right?" Lana turned to face me and kissed me lightly on the lips. "I love you too, Scotty," she said, but there was something distant in her eyes. "You know ID never hurt you, right, Lana?" She shuddered slightly. "I know that, Scotty," she said, but she couldn't meet my eyes. At that moment, I realized I had probably lost her. If she hadn't already, she would soon give herself to another man. I excused myself and went to the bathroom, needing a moment to collect myself. How had this happened? What had I done to push her away? And most importantly, what could I do to stop Ida, or was it already too late? After a few minutes, I emerged feeling slightly more composed. Lana was standing by the bed with a strange expression on her face. "Oh my God, Scotty, I just got my period and didn't bring any tampons." "What?" I asked, confused. "You just had it last week. How could it start again?" "I don't know, but sometimes it happens. I need to go buy some tampons," she said, and hurried out of the room. My first thought was that this might be a good thing. It would slow down any potential romance between her and this man. But then another thought crept in. This wasn't normal. Lana was always regular. So why was she lying? Unless she wanted to avoid intimacy with me, so she could give herself entirely to someone else. This realization made me feel sick. I noticed she had left her phone on the dresser. I picked it up, unsure if she had changed her password. She hadn't. I scrolled through her recent messages and found a thread with someone named Mark James. I began reading. "Mark, hey babe, you look stunning. Can't wait to have you all to myself. Lana, you're such a tease. Scotty almost caught us at the airport. Mark, I couldn't help it, Lana. Seeing you made me want you so badly. I almost kissed you on the plane." Lana, Scotty was asleep, so he wouldn't have noticed, but still, that would have been risky. "I did like that little squeeze you gave me, though. A preview of what's to come. LOL. The conversation continued, and it became clear they were planning to meet up. I was devastated. I realized I was on the brink of losing everything. My marriage was in shambles, and I was completely unprepared for what was to come. The conversation between them resumed once we were in our hotel room. "Mark, I'm in the lobby. Are you there yet?" "Lana in my room. Scotty's in the bathroom. He's acting weird." "Mark, what does it matter? When are you going to ditch him so I can have you all to myself?" "Lana, I told you from the start, Mark, I can't and won't do that. Scotty's a great husband. He loves me, takes care of me, and provides a life you could never offer. Mark, but I'm better than him in bed." "Lana, oh God, yeah. You know you are. But it's not just about sex, and Scotty gives me what I need. We're planning to start a family soon, so these next 2 weeks are just for you. I told Scotty I went off the pill when we got home, but I actually stopped 3 weeks ago. So you've got a chance to give me a baby, and Scotty will raise it thinking it's his." "Mark, you're so naughty, Lana. I love it. I'll make sure you leave with a baby in your belly." "Lana, you're making me excited just talking about it. I can't wait to feel you inside me." "Mark, what about Scotty? How do you know he won't catch us?" "Lana, he won't. They'll tell him my period started again, and ITLL conveniently lasts the whole time we're here, LOL. "Mark, are you sure he'll buy it?" "Lana, of course. He loves me too much to suspect anything. Besides, when we get back, it'll make it up to him. Mark, damn, he's so gullible. What a loser." "Lana, stop that, or you'll lose me." "Mark, we both know you won't let that happen. You need what I give you too much." Lana, true, but I still don't like it when you talk about Scotty like that. He's a good guy. Mark, okay. Meet me in the lobby. Lana, give me 5 minutes. I stood there in shock, almost unable to believe what I had just read. I considered replacing her phone with mine, but decided against it. She created this mess, let her figure it out. I took both phones and knew it wouldn't be long before she realized hers was missing. But by then, I planned to be long gone. I felt bile rising in my throat and had to fight the urge to vomit. I looked out the window at the beautiful Caribbean Sea. Just hours earlier, I had been the happiest man on earth, ready to enjoy 2 weeks of romance with the love of my life. Now everything had crumbled. I had never felt so alone, so betrayed. I wanted to destroy them both, to make them pay for turning me into a fool. But the rational side of my brain slowly took control. Divorce was inevitable. There was no way I could stay with this cheating woman who used to be my loving wife. But I wanted more. I wanted revenge. Looking out the window, I happened to glance down at the pool, and there they were, wrapped in each other's arms, sharing a passionate kiss. Mark's hand slid down to caress Lana's backside. I almost lost it, but instead, I grabbed my video camera, which I had brought along to capture our vacation memories, but now used to record their betrayal. The camera had a decent zoom, and I was able to get clear close-ups of their intimate moments. It made me sick to watch, but I knew it would be useful later. I needed a plan, and I needed it fast. My mind raced, but my stomach was in knots, and I struggled to think clearly. Then it hit me, how were they planning to spend time together if I was around? They must have a plan to keep me occupied while they enjoyed each other's company. It became clear to me Lana was going to spend these 2 weeks with Mark, so he could get her pregnant, and I wanted to ruin it all. But I had to figure out how they intended to keep me out of the way first. While filming, I saw them share another kiss before Lana quickly turned and walked away. She could return to our room at any moment, so I needed to get my emotions under control. I went back to the bathroom and turned on the shower, hoping it would help me relax. If she asked what was wrong, I'd just tell her that I needed to wash off the flight. 5 minutes later, I heard the door to our room open and close. In back, she called out, "I brought water and tampons." "Great, they'll be out in a minute," I replied. But then I realized, why did she bring water? Bottled water was provided in the room. And suddenly it dawned on Mesh planned to drug me. My mind raced. If I didn't drink the water, she'd know I was suspicious. If I drank it and it was drugged, I'd pass out, and she'd go to Mark's room. What was I supposed to do? I turned off the shower and dried myself slowly, contemplating my next move. Then Lana knocked on the door. "Are you okay? You've been in there a while." Her voice was filled with concern. Was she worried about me or about missing her date with Mark? My anger flared again, but I fought to keep my composure. When I opened the door, she was standing by the bed, drinking from a bottle of water. She handed me another bottle, and I noticed it was already open. "We need to stay hydrated with this climate change," she said, avoiding eye contact. I took the bottle and pretended to take a long drink. As soon as I turned my back, I quietly spat the water into the sink and emptied the bottle. I refilled it with water from one of the sealed bottles in the bathroom and then returned to the room. She was busy unpacking, so I was sure she hadn't noticed what I had done. As I continued to drink the water, I began to form a plan. "Is that the dress you're wearing to dinner?" I asked, pointing to the red dress she had laid out. "You know how much that dress drives me wild." "Well, since I brought it, I might as well wear it," she replied with a smile. "Are you feeling tired from the trip?" Bingo! She had definitely spiked my water. But how should I play this? I needed more evidence of their affair, so I pretended to be sleepy. I took another sip of water, then let my eyelids droop as if I was tired. In reality, I felt as if I'd just downed a few energy drinks, my heart pounding wildly, but I forced myself to act sleepy. "Now that you mention it, yeah, I'm a little tired. What time should we get ready for dinner?" I asked, feigning exhaustion. "Seating doesn't start for a couple of hours. Why don't you lie down and get some rest? It'll wake you when it's time to get ready," she suggested, with such sincerity that I almost believed her. I yawned. "Okay, honey, a nap won't hurt. Just don't let me sleep too long. I want to spend as much time with you as possible. I love you so much." I saw her flinch at my words. "I love you too," she said, but without much conviction. I lay down and pretended to drift off, soon snoring softly. I heard Lana take out her phone and make a call. Hey, it worked. He's out. How long will this keep him asleep? So we have the whole night? I can't wait to be with you, she giggled. I nearly choked, but managed to maintain my act. Meet me in an hour at the beach bar. I need to freshen up a bit, she said before hanging up. I watched her through barely open eyes as she prepared for her date with Mark, choosing a thong and a push-up bra. I felt a surge of hatred, but kept pretending to sleep. Once she was in the shower, I quickly searched her purse and found a small bottle of unlabeled pills. These must have been what she used on me. I carefully shook out a few, wrapped them in a tissue, and put them in my pocket before putting the bottle back. Then I returned to bed just as I heard the shower turn off. Lana took her time getting ready, but as soon as she left the room, I got up and dressed as quickly as I could. I had formed a plan while lying there. First, I needed more video evidence of them together. Then, ID ruined their plans for the rest of the trip. I wasn't sure how yet, but I knew ID make them pay. I grabbed my video camera and ran out the door. The hotel wasn't large, and there were only 2 bars, both with ocean views, but the beach bar was larger and had a dance floor. I found a spot behind some palm trees with a clear view of the bar, but far enough away that I wouldn't be seen. Using the zoom lens, I got a good shot of them as they embraced and kissed. My blood boiled, but I reminded myself that I was there to gather evidence, not to end up in jail. I recorded them behaving like lovers, laughing, touching, and kissing as if they were the only 2 people in the world. After an hour, the DJ started playing music, and they moved to the dance floor. I couldn't watch any longer and was about to leave when I noticed them leaving the dance floor and heading toward the back of the hotel. I followed at a distance, recording their every move. They stopped occasionally to kiss and caress each other, and I captured it all. They eventually reached Mark's room, a smaller one on the first floor without an ocean view. They went inside, and I quickly moved closer to see if I could catch anything else. The curtains weren't fully closed, and the window was slightly open, so I could hear them and record their conversation. Mark seemed to enjoy seeing who he was with because he left the light on. They began kissing and undressing each other, and I recorded every moment. Once they were completely naked, I noticed that Mark was well endowed, but that didn't excuse her betrayal. I continued filming until they finally fell asleep. It was nearing midnight, and I thought Lana would soon return to our room, but then I heard their conversation. Are you sure these pills are safe? I don't want him to have a seizure or something, Lana asked, her voice filled with concern. Don't worry, baby. He'll sleep for at least 6 hours. He might wake up with a headache, but nothing more. You only gave him 1 pill, right? Yes, just 1. And what would 2 do? I don't want to overdose him, they laughed. No, don't worry. 2 would knock him out for 12 hours or more. Just keep giving him 1 before bed, and we can spend every night together. I want you pregnant by the time we leave here. They both laughed again, and I felt a surge of rage. I had heard enough for one night. I quietly left and returned to our room. Now I needed to figure out how to destroy them both. I decided that the first thing I would do was change their plans. Returning to our room, I began formulating a plan that I hoped would completely ruin their fun. I needed to find a way to separate them, maybe even drug Mark like they had planned to do to me, and then beat him to a pulp while he was unconscious. He wouldn't be able to identify the attacker, and I could leave scot-free. But first, I had to make sure they weren't together. Then it hit me I could treat Lana to a spa day. The hotel had a spa that offered massages, facials, and other treatments. It would be easy enough to buy a package and give it to her as a surprise, showing how much I loved her. If she tried to refuse, I'd tell her it was non-refundable, guilt-tripping her into going. There was no way she could turn down my gift, and it would keep her occupied for at least a few hours long enough for me to deal with Mark. I changed back into shorts and went to bed. It was about 5 a.m. when Lana finally returned to the room. She quietly changed her clothes, climbed into bed, and snuggled up to me. I wanted to push her away, but I remained motionless, waiting for the right moment to wake up. Shortly after 7 a.m., I began to stir, pretending to slowly wake up. Lana was fast asleep, so I got up, took a quick shower, and then went out to find the spa. I hoped it opened early, so I could buy her a package that would keep her busy long enough for me to take care of some business. I also wanted to see if I could book an earlier flight home. It didn't take long to find the spa, and I saw that it was open. A young woman behind the counter helped me choose a package. I was more interested in how long the treatment would take than what it entailed. I chose one that lasted about 3 hours and asked if it could be booked for the afternoon. She checked her computer and told me the earliest available slot was at 2 p.m. I booked it and headed out, deciding that Lana needed some rest after her night with Mark. Around 9 a.m., I returned to the room and found her still fast asleep. I rummaged through her purse and found her phone. I checked her texts and saw one from Mark, sent within the last hour. "Mark, you were amazing last night. Any chance you could sneak away for some afternoon fun?" My anger flared again, but I kept it in check. The end was near. Lana began to stir, so I put her phone back, walked over, and gently kissed her forehead. "Good morning, sleepyhead. I'm sorry about yesterday, for falling asleep so suddenly and ruining our dinner plans, but I have a surprise for you." She smiled and yawned. "What kind of surprise?" "I booked you a spa day as an apology for last night, and to show you how much I love you." Even half asleep, I noticed her shudder slightly, and uncertainty clouded her eyes. At that moment, I realized she doubted whether she truly loved me. I looked into her eyes. "Is everything okay? Don't you like my gift?" "Oh no, I like it. I just wish you had asked me first." She smiled faintly. "If I had done that, it wouldn't have been much of a surprise. Look, you don't have to rush off to the spa now. Your appointment is at 2, so we can spend some time together before that." "Fine," she nodded. "Thank you, Scotty. You're very thoughtful. Why don't you freshen up, and we'll go have breakfast?" I suggested, getting out of bed. Lana grabbed her purse and headed to the bathroom. I already knew what she was up to, but I didn't want to make her suspicious. I went to the window and saw an interesting sight. Mark was standing by the pool, chatting with 2 young women and checking his phone. Then I saw him typing before putting the phone away. Lana must have told him about my surprise, but he didn't seem too upset. His attention quickly returned to the 2 women, who laughed at something he said. Then they all disappeared from view. I wondered if Mark was making other plans in case Lana couldn't entertain him that afternoon. An hour later, Lana and I were at the breakfast buffet. I filled my plate, while she only took some fruit and coffee. "Are you not hungry, baby? Is it because of your period?" I asked. "Yes, that must be it. I just don't feel like eating," she replied distractedly. I couldn't help but wonder what Mark had texted her, because it clearly bothered her. But it didn't matter. My plan was having the desired effect. After breakfast, we took a walk along the beach. I brought my camera and took photos of the scenery and of Lana. She smiled politely, and I complimented her on how beautiful she was and how great a mother she'd be. She shuddered, and guilt flickered across her face. "What's wrong, baby? Are you okay?" I asked, knowing guilt was gnawing at her. "No, I'm fine. Just a little tired. Do you mind if I go back to the room and take a nap before my spa visit?" "Sure, no problem. I know it's not fun to be on vacation and suddenly get your period. Go rest, and we'll catch up after your spa treatment." She turned and walked back to the hotel without even kissing me goodbye. Soon I'd give her something to remember. All I had to do now was find Mark and make him pay. As I continued walking along the beach, lost in thought, I saw 2 couples approaching. The women were the same ones I had seen with Mark earlier, now with 2 very large guys who looked like they could play for the NFL. As they passed, I overheard part of their conversation. "Come on, baby, don't be like that. You know Dave and I wanted to go deep-sea fishing, and they had 2 spots available. We'll be back before dinner," one of the guys said. "Yeah, it's always like that. You guys go off and do whatever you want while we're stuck here at the hotel," one of the women complained. "Baby, there's a lot you can do here. Go shopping, relax by the pool or on the beach. Heck, you could even hit the gym," the other guy suggested. "What? Are you saying I'm fat?" The woman snapped. "No, baby, that's not what I meant. It's just that there are plenty of things to do here," he backpedaled. As they passed me, I realized he had lost the battle, but was still pleading his case. After wandering around the beach for a while, I decided to return to the hotel and see what Mark was up to. I worried Lana might skip her spa visit and spend the afternoon with him, but if that happened, I'd get more video evidence. I spent over an hour wandering around the hotel before ending up near Mark's room. I heard voices inside, but not Lannis. I carefully prepared my camera and approached the window. It was risky because it was daylight, and someone could easily spot me. I decided to mount the camera on the outside windowsill and let it record on its own. Then I moved to a spot where I could watch his door and see who came out. Time seemed to drag on, but eventually, I was rewarded for my patience. The two women I had seen with Mark earlier came out of his room, laughing and giggling as if they shared a hilarious secret. As soon as they left, I retrieved my camera and headed back to my room. Lana wouldn't be back from her spa treatment for another hour, so I had time to review the footage. Back in the room, I pulled out my laptop and downloaded the videos I had recorded so far. Most of it was footage of Lana and Mark, but then I watched what I had just recorded of the two women in his room. It looked like Mark had convinced them to have a threesome with him. It was like watching a cheap adult film. I had sex with one while the other watched and played with herself, and then they switched places, repeating the cycle. At that moment, another idea struck me. What if I could time my return home to coincide with Lana being stuck here, trying to figure out what had happened? I knew she would probably try to drug me again that night, so she could meet up with Mark. If I timed it right, I could slip one of the pills into their drinks, and they'd pass out before reaching his room. The timing had to be perfect, but rarely does anything go exactly as planned. The second part of my plan was to make a DVR copy of Mark's latest conquest. I had several blank discs, so I made 2 copies of his threesome exploits. Now I just needed to figure out which rooms to leave them in. I also made a copy of all the footage I had recorded so far as insurance. I went to the front desk and mailed the disc to my brother Eric with a note asking him not to watch it or let anyone know I had sent it to him. This was in case my plan failed or if Lana and Mark realized what I was up to and tried to retaliate. If they killed me, the disc would at least show the authorities who was responsible. After checking the time, I saw that Lana's spa treatment was almost over, so I decided to take a quick walk around the hotel to see which rooms the two women and their boyfriends were staying in. I was sure their boyfriends would be more than a little interested in what their girlfriends had been up to while they were deep-sea fishing. Soon, I saw the two women I was looking for rise from the pool with towels in their hands. I followed them and learned they were staying in rooms next to each other. Perfect. This solved one part of my plan. Now, if everything went as expected, by tomorrow morning, I could completely ruin the rest of their trip. I went back to my room and called the airline to find out the earliest flight available the next morning. The best they had was at 10 a.m., later than I had hoped, but I booked it anyway. Then I returned to the front desk and informed them that Lana and I would have to leave the next morning due to an emergency at home. I told them we would be checking out at 8 a.m. They sympathized and wished me well, and I thanked them before heading back to the room. Now I was fully committed to my plan. Come what may. If things didn't go as I hoped, I'd catch the flight in the morning and get home before Lana. At least I could ruin everything for her before she got back. But if everything went according to plan, she'd be stuck here for days, maybe even weeks, before she could return home, giving me plenty of time to destroy her life. The plan was simple. First, let Lana think she had drugged me and that I was fast asleep so she and Mark could spend the evening together. Second, go back to the bar, watch and wait for the right moment to spike their drinks with the same pills she used on me. If timed correctly, they'd pass out just as they reach his room. Third, once they were out, I'd take Lana back to our room, then return to give Mark a beating he wouldn't forget. I'd take his wallet, cash, passport, credit cards, everything he brought with him. Then I'd find the rooms of the two women Mark had a threesome with and slide the DVR discs under their doors, hoping one of the boyfriends would find them first and watch. I was sure they wouldn't be too pleased to see what their girlfriends had done. Mark's face was clearly visible on the video, so they wouldn't have any trouble identifying him. Finally, I'd do the same to Lana, take everything she brought with her, leaving her with nothing but the clothes on her back, her purse, and her empty wallet. I'd leave a little note in her wallet, so she'd know exactly who was responsible. Now everything was set, and all I could do was wait for the players to make their moves. Lana returned to the room around 5:30 p.m., looking more relaxed and radiant than ever before. It pained me to think that this would be the last time I'd see her like this. "Scotty, thank you so much for the spa day. It was amazing. I feel like a new woman," she said, glowing. "I'm glad you enjoyed it. When I first mentioned it, you didn't seem too excited, but I'm happy you liked it. I just wanted to show you how much I love you." I saw her wince again, but I also saw tears welling up in her eyes. "Thanks again. I really did enjoy it. And I love you too," she said, this time with more sincerity. "Anytime, Baby, we have dinner reservations at 7 p.m. How about we get some rest before we get ready? She nodded and went to the bathroom, taking her purse with her. A few minutes later, she emerged with 2 bottles of water and handed one to me. Here, drink this. I want to go dancing tonight, so you'd better start hydrating now, she winked. Okay. Just let me use the bathroom first, I chuckled. Once inside, I followed the same routine as before, emptying the bottle and refilling it with water from one of the sealed bottles in the bathroom. I flushed the toilet to make it sound like I was busy, then returned to the bedroom. I continued drinking the water, and after about 15 minutes, I started to act sleepy. Soon, I was snoring softly, pretending to be asleep, while Lana got ready for her last date with Mark, though she didn't know it yet. She took her time preparing, and then, in an unexpected move, she sat down on the bed next to me and gently touched my cheek. Scotty, after this week, they'll be all yours, I swear. I just needed to clear my head before we start a family. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you, and I know you wouldn't understand, but I have to do this. The next few days are for me. I'm sorry I couldn't be honest, but I know that if you found out, you'd leave me, and I need you now more than ever. I love you so much, but I really need to do this, she whispered. At first, I thought she might have realized I was awake, but then I understood she was just trying to ease her own guilt. But it was too late for that. Soon she was fully dressed and walked out the door. As soon as the door closed, I jumped out of bed, got dressed, and wasn't far behind her. They ended up at the same bar as the previous night. The place was busier, and I even saw the 2 women and their boyfriends from the beach. If everything went according to plan, they wouldn't be together by morning. I found my spot from the night before and made myself comfortable, recording the evening's events with my camera. The night unfolded as I expected. Lana and Mark laughed and flirted, their chemistry undeniable. It was getting late, and I knew the moment was approaching when I needed to drug their drinks. I moved closer to the bar, ensuring they couldn't see me. Once there, I found a seat near where the waitresses picked up drink orders. I ordered a beer and kept my eyes on them. When I saw a waitress stop at their table, I watched as she took their order and returned to the bar. I was lucky enough to be close enough to see the drinks being prepared. When the bartender stepped away, I quickly dropped 3 of the pills into each of their drinks, then returned to my seat. The final act was about to begin. The waitress delivered their drinks, and soon both Mark and Lana took a sip. Now all I had to do was wait and see how long it took for the drug to take effect. After about half an hour, I noticed them getting drowsy. Lana leaned on Mark's shoulder and whispered something in his ear. Then they both stood and headed toward the exit. I followed at a distance, making sure not to get too close. As they approached the door, they staggered, leaning on each other for support. I was sure they'd pass out at any moment, but they kept moving forward. I kept my distance until they reached Mark's room, then waited a few minutes to give them time to get inside. Once I felt it was safe, I approached the door and quietly opened it with the key card I had taken from Lana's purse. Inside, I found them both lying on the bed, completely unconscious. Now it was time for revenge. I walked over to Mark and rolled him on his back, then began punching him hard in the face. He didn't move, so I continued until my fists hurt. After finishing with him, I turned to Lana. I hated her for what she had done, but I couldn't bring myself to hit her. Instead, I took her purse, wallet, and the few things she had brought on the trip. I took everything else in the room: Mark's passport, cash, credit cards, and any other valuables I could find, leaving them with nothing but the clothes on their backs. I quickly left the room and went to the rooms of the 2 women I had seen with Mark earlier. I slid the DVR discs under their doors, hoping their boyfriends would find them first. I knew that when they saw what their girlfriends had done, they would be furious and confront Mark, adding to his misery. After completing my mission, I returned to my room, packed my bags, and prepared to leave early in the morning. At 8 a.m. the next morning, I checked out of the hotel and headed to the airport. I felt a mix of satisfaction and sadness, knowing that my marriage was over and that the woman I had loved for over 10 years had betrayed me so completely. But I also knew that I had taken my revenge and that Lana and Mark would suffer the consequences of their actions. As I boarded the plane, I felt a sense of relief, knowing that I was finally free from the lies and deceit that had plagued my life. Thanks for watching. What would you do if you uncovered such a shocking betrayal? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more jaw-dropping tales. See you next time.
I read somewhere that when men and women look for a partner, they instinctively size each other up based on certain features. Important attributes include education, age, appearance, social status, and wealth. There are other factors too, like having children from a previous marriage, generosity, humor, intelligence, and lifestyle habits like drinking or being vegetarian. One general assumption is that a guy making $60,000 a year might be okay as a friend, with benefits for a woman making $15,000 but isn't husband material. Despite what you see in Hollywood movies, the wealthy don't marry the hired help they marry within their own social class. We all know roughly our level of desirability. A man probably won't expect a woman he sees as far above his level to do more than hook up with him. We subconsciously think that somewhere along the path of courtship and marriage, they will decide it was a mistake and that they can do better. Whether this is true or not, it got me thinking that my wife and I are well matched. We married in our 30s, a bit later than our folks did, and now, after 5 years, we are starting to talk about having a family. Maybe this winter we're both decent-looking, clever people from New England working-class families. My family made more money than hers. My dad is a successful contractor from Portland, but my wife's family had more status. She was an oops baby, born to a mother at the end of her childbearing years, married to an older man. Her dad was president of a small bank in Augusta, Maine. Those were the days when bankers made a decent living but didn't earn a lot of money. Her dad wore a suit every day, and everyone in town knew they might need to go to him for a loan. He controlled money and people's access to it, and because of that, he had status. As adults, we each graduated from college, her from a prestigious private college with no scholarship aid. Her mother worked for years to pay the tuition. I graduated from the local state college, which I paid for with a little help from my dad. Emily majored in art history with a minor in political science, an interesting field, but tough to earn enough money to raise a family on. On the other hand, I had the brains to get into a private school, and Dad had the money and urged me to do so. Observing my family, I realized that success in life at our level was more about initiative and brains than education. I learned the basics of running a business and how to think, speak, and write in more or less that order. The local state college suited me fine, especially as I could attend courses at Amherst and Mount Holyoke colleges more or less at will. I majored in history with a minor in business and took overloads every semester. After 2 years, I switched to engineering. I loved learning, reveling in poetry, literature, and history for my soul, while balancing them with economics and engineering courses for the practical part of my mind. I ignored students focused on the party life and made several fast friends among the serious students. During school, I worked for my dad during summers and learned the hard work and sweat side of the contracting business. After graduation, I learned the business side. I discovered that while I was good at management, I didn't enjoy it. I liked old historic buildings, the craftsmen on site, the thrill of discovery as you removed layers of renovation, and the sense of accomplishment when restoring them to their former glory. You honor architects and craftsmen dead 50 years or more by giving new life to their work. I also liked having an active hand in the work. I met an old man who specialized in decorative plaster work and was seduced by the craft and his way of working. I spent 3 years as his apprentice and then developed a nice business as a small firm specializing in restoration plaster. This included everything from the structural support of plaster work to decorative painting, gilding, and other ornamental work. I knew I wouldn't get rich, but it would provide a good living. At 34 years of age, I carry on my payroll my former master Anthony, his apprentice, a secretary and office manager, and 1 laborer. I hire subcontractors and a host of the best restoration artists and professionals in the business as needed. As a side note, I am nearly finished writing a book on restoring decorative plasterwork with Anthony as my co-author. Oddly enough, while Emily went to school 7 miles away from my school with 3 years of overlap, I never met her during those years. 5 years after I graduated, I met her in a bar when we were both back visiting our respective folks. Her father had died and her mom moved to South Portland. Emily had been married and divorced in the interim. She refused to say much about it other than her husband became abusive, which is all one has to say. In getting to know her, we talked about our common experience in and around Northampton. She was a bit of a party girl in college, no thought to earning a living, no overloads, and no challenging classes. Having said this, you would make a mistake to assume she had a second-class mind. She was smart but lazy, never learning the pleasure of working on a difficult intellectual puzzle. I now realize this was the curriculum of choice for many who imagined themselves in the upper class, not much work, lots of fun, and a prestigious diploma. The real world comes as a surprise to people like that. She was surprised and a bit jealous to find I had taken courses from some of the same professors she did, although she tended to take introductory courses while I talked my way into more focused upper-level ones. It also irked her that I spent considerable time at these professors' homes, eating at their tables, meeting their spouses, and discussing art, science, and life well into the night. Some of them regularly assist me now when I run into issues of conservation and don't know exactly what I'm seeing, emerge from under the paint I have to remove or what I have in front of me. The economic, upbringing, educational, and regional connections created a bond, but I thought it was our intellect that deepened our relationship into love and finally marriage. The decision about where we would live was easy. I mentioned at work that Emily was living in Philadelphia, and Anthony announced that as he had family in Philadelphia, we all might as well move there. It was closer to bigger jobs and property costs weren't as high, so we did. When I bought our house, the neighborhood was somewhat undesirable. Ours is a lovely Victorian Romanesque style house, faced with cut serpentine stone, a soft stone found locally with a greenish cast. The inside was complete with all of the original stained glass windows and custom woodwork. I replastered half of the house, copying the original moldings and plasterwork decoration. You may have seen it, as it's been written up in several magazines lately. The neighborhood's gentrification has been accelerating, which is good for our investment. The house is worth 3 or 4 times what we have in it now. However, we are surrounded by folks who earn, or at least make, a lot more money than us. Most of my work is for the wealthy, institutions, or the government, so my wife and I have to be socially active. She's got a part-time job with the local Democratic Party, and our social life has changed from a dinner and movie to a dinner and a play or the symphony. I've had to buy a black suit and a couple of 100 ties. Now I cannot reliably pronounce the names of French Impressionist painters with the proper accent, but one of the growing differences between us is that wifey can and looks down on those who cannot. I am always clean and well-dressed, but prefer an understated look. Actually, I admire the way the relatively few wealthy ones who come from old money dress superb quality, but never the brand names added onto cheaply made clothing from China, no logos showing. My casual clothes are worn but not worn out. Our neighbors are similar to most people who are doing well for themselves, in my opinion. They are over-groomed, diet to the point of becoming scrawny, and show their class insecurity by wearing outrageously expensive designer clothing with the labels on the outside so they can impress their peers. Janet, our neighbor's wife, is very proud of a hugely expensive watch that looks like a Chihuahua's Collarno taste. Despite my enjoyment of physical work, my business has shifted from me doing it myself to me undertaking the business end of restoration. I still work with my hands and body as much as possible. I figured out that if my back goes out, I can't work, so I work out 3 times a week to ensure that I stay flexible and my muscle tone is good enough to keep me from getting hurt. However, I also like to eat, and while weightlifting maintains muscle mass, it doesn't do much about calories. My weight has been edging up a bit and my business down a bit thanks to the recession. Last October, I noticed that shirts marked large didn't fit so well when I sat down. While not obese, I do have a belly that I have to admit is larger than is convenient. By contrast, wifey has, as they used to say, kept her shape. It also occurred to me that my very desirable wife is surrounded by high-earning, good-looking, trim males, and I don't look too good by comparison. Further, I rationalized that you do have to call a stop to waistline creep somewhere, or you risk becoming a circus attraction. So when my daughter dumped her 130-pound 2-year-old mutt named Prince on us, Prince for short, I used him to make a change in my life. Since I work out of our home much of the time, I got the job of primary caregiver to the dog, taking him for walks while my Emily does the brushing and the occasional bath. After a bit, she decided to rename the dog, and wifey settled on Sparky. I wondered if she might have been thinking of Cerberus, the big 3-headed dog guarding the gates of Hades. She sometimes uses one word when she means another, but the words were a bit too different for that. Or maybe she liked the nickname Sparky and didn't realize it was short for Spartan. I didn't much care for the name, but what the hell? Sparky it was, except when I had to holler it on the street. Then I shortened it to Spark. The dog doesn't seem to mind being called different names. One of the jobs of dog ownership is walking the dog, which should certainly be more than short defecatory rambles. Sparky is a remarkably good-looking fellow. People stop us to admire him. Well, formerly a he, there are a few essential bits missing now. Sparky isn't satisfied with a quick stroll around the block unless the weather is rotten. He likes to get a good long walk. I started walking the dog several miles a day and discovered I really liked to walk. In no time I had lined up my day's phone calls and we did a walk and call. We would spend an hour walking 3 miles every morning while I got my calls in. From there it was a short hop to jogging half a mile, walking half a mile, jogging half a mile, so we were covering 4 miles in an hour. I pushed it to 5 miles an hour, but the dog was struggling, so we settled on 4 miles an hour. At the same time, I shifted my diet as well, reducing the helpings of meat and eating more vegetables and salad. No prepared salad dressing, home dressings made with balsamic vinegar, a bit of olive oil and cheese. I used to joke that you couldn't neglect a belly like mine. You had to feed it 3 times a day, or it would shrivel up to nothing. Although it began to shrivel, I really didn't feel I was culinarily deprived just eating right. I had dropped from 235 to 210 pounds before wifey remarked, "Have you lost weight or something? Those pants are a bit too big." "Nah, I probably was never as fat as you remember me to be. Seriously, these pants were always a little big. We support 2 of the local charity resale shops, and since I wear kind of generic men's clothes, it was easy to donate my big chinos and jeans and buy smaller ones that fit. All of the clothes are slightly worn, and all look pretty much the same as the clothes I've always worn. Wifey has a few quirks, one that she inherited from her mother, who was an out-and-out hippie flower child who married a banker. Go figure. Neither woman liked perfume or scented deodorants and didn't use anything but clear nail polish. Her natural smell is quite pleasant, but you have to have your nose close to notice it. It was remarkable then, when she came home one Thursday with some perfume on. Thinking she was perhaps advertising her availability for loving, I gave her a hug, followed by a nuzzle and kiss in expectation. But no, apparently tonight was not the night. She went upstairs to shower before supper, which was another unusual event. It may have been the rejection of amorous intent that got me to thinking. It had been a while since we made love, perhaps a couple of weeks, and God knows when the last time was that she initiated lovemaking. I had brought this issue up before, about me always asking for loving and never her. I had even suggested marriage counseling. She claimed that she loved me very much, but at this time in her life she had a weak libido, and that was that. So did the perfume come from a sample at a department store? I looked in her purse but found nothing there. At supper, nothing was out of place. The conversation was normal, and there was casual affection. I was suspicious, and yes, I felt stupid going through the hamper looking for stains on her underwear. I didn't really expect any, and saw none. Over the next week, I checked our phone records and computer, but saw nothing out of the ordinary. On subsequent Tuesdays, I smelled the same perfume on her, but never found the bottle. I didn't ask wifey, as I figured I would get a bogus answer, and yet I couldn't find anything obvious. One evening, she did mention a job at the art museum she was going to apply for. I mentioned, "I know Tom Hoving, the business manager over there, quite well. What's the job? Do you want to meet him?" The response was cold water. "No, Chris, I don't want your friends to try to get me a job. I want to do it on my own." "Well, be assured that they won't give you a job no matter who recommends you. I can get you the interview with the right person. It's up to you from there, but please yourself." What the hell, I thought. Go for it, girl. Still, I thought nothing untoward about her changing jobs. So what can you do? Look for changes in behavior and hope they mean nothing. My weight got down to 190 during all of this, and my leg muscles had bulked up a bit. Frankly, I looked good and felt good. I slept well. My pecker stood at attention every morning when I woke up. Even wifey noticed and complimented me on my appearance, not that it resulted in anything like a surge in our lovemaking. But I began to notice other women now went a bit out of their way to chat with me. I must admit this latter bit generally occurred when I was walking the dog. Dogs do make people more accessible to chat, but the chats were increasingly broken off by me or the dog, as he is not interested in long talks when he wants to be walking. The dog walks soon got boring, starting as they did from the house every day. So first as a treat, and later as a habit, the dog and I began taking a taxi to other areas around about 4 miles from our house. We'd get dropped off out there and then walk home. One Tuesday, as is my custom, I was up before Emily, made coffee for myself and tea for her. I was reading the paper when she came down for breakfast fruit plate on the table, English muffins by the toaster. "Why don't you look nice? What's with the shoes? You need to wipe the dust off of them. You've been wearing sandals for the last month or more." "Well, I thought they would look nice with this dress." "Isn't that a summer sundress? I'd have thought sandals more in keeping with the season." "Chris, no one asks you for fashion advice, do they?" "There's a reason for that. I have a full day in the office, but I'll be home at the usual time." "What's on your schedule today?" "I have to see Mark in construction. They got the contract to restore the Royal Theatre, and there's so much decorative work that if I get the job, I'm going to have to hire more help. Looking it over could take all day. Other than that, I'll be here when you get home." The site is a bit of a walk from our place, so the dog and I took a cab. The theater is a huge auditorium built in 1925. It's suitable for movies or live acts with 1,800 seats and was saved by a local college last year from the wrecking ball. It was one of the driving forces in the rehabbing of what could be a lovely neighborhood. However, it was a pain in my butt. Mark didn't have a copy of the specification and wasn't sure what I should include in my bid other than the plaster work. I explained that, of course, he could pay us to put up scaffolding, do the plaster work, and then take it down. Then he could pay the painters and gilders to put the scaffolding back up and take it down again. But where was the savings in that? Plus, we would know what plaster needed weeks to dry and what could be done right away. Letting me do it all would save at least a couple of months in completing the job. I think I sold him on expanding my scope. Mark normally does new work, but times are tough. He took this job and was a bit out of his element. I spent a lot of time taking pictures and crawling all over the place, getting some idea of the extent of the damage. The dog did easy time and snoozed peacefully for about 3 hours. I was about done by 11:30 and glad I was to be out in the air again. Sparky and I set out in the general direction of home, but I was hungry and wanted to check out a block of restaurants I had read about in the Sunday paper. By 12:30, we had walked about 2 miles and were traversing the restaurants, each with sidewalk eating out front. Both the dog and I were interested in the smells of food. I was surveying the lot to figure out what appealed to me. At the next last restaurant, I spotted my wife at an outside table close to the building. She was clearly holding hands with a well-dressed older man. She probably would have noticed me if she wasn't so focused with happy intent on what her dinner companion was saying. Of course, she didn't expect me to be there, and the dog was hidden by the other tables in a row of little potted bushes and such, so he hadn't given us away. If there had been any doubt as to it being her, the dog picked his nose up and gave a gentle woof, recognizing her scent. I put him in the heel position lest he lunged into the restaurant and walked past them. My mind was racing with thoughts ranging from denial to homicidal rage. I continued around the block while my head cleared until I came to the point where they were in view again. I was sure I didn't recognize the guy. He was clearly older than her by 20 years and had the look of money about him. By now, the table had been cleared and coffee served. I had stalled as long as I could. I had to make a decision: attack, flee, or hide and follow them. What really decided it was that wifey's back was to me, so I could approach unrecognized. I put the dog in the heel position and walked up to them, keeping my eyes on the folks at the table next to them so Studley wouldn't connect my approach with them. As I closed in, I saw wifey had her shoe off and was rubbing his leg with her foot, which sported red nail polish. As I came abreast of the table, I picked up an empty chair and sat down at their table, clearly startling the two of them. "Emily, I was just walking by and saw you here. Who's the new man?" She visibly jumped and yanked her hand out of his with a look of panic in her eyes, while the dog was pestering her with his exuberant, doggy greeting. I nudged her shoe out of reach and stuck out my hand to Studley. "Hi, I'm John Whitaker. The habits of courtesy carry us through all embarrassment. James Morgan." And with no prompting, I help out at the party office with Emily. "James, this is my husband John and our dog Sparky. What are you doing here?" "Gee, I asked you first. What are you two doing here?" "You tell me." Her foot with scarlet red painted toenails was scrambling around under the table trying to find her shoe. "Oh, just having lunch. And your plans for afterward?" "We're going back to work, of course." "Oh, of course. Well, good. That relieves my mind. When I saw you holding hands and you playing footsie under the table with your red toes, I thought that this might be a local Democratic sequel to Bill and Monica. You're not a cigar smoker, are you, James?" I heard a guffaw from the table behind me, but Studley smirked and shook his head. "Afraid not. Planning to put something else in then, I suppose. Well, you folks get along with your afternoon. It's a long cab ride back to your office from here, Emily. I assume you'll be home at the regular time. I'll have supper ready and a dessert, so please don't bother bringing home a cream pie." I don't think she knew what a cream pie is because she looked befuddled. The guys behind me did another chuckle, and a slightly embarrassed grin came from Studley. "John, I resent your insinuations. This is nothing more than a lunch." I stood up, returned the chair to the table where I found it, and glanced directly at the two guys behind me who had been hanging on every word, so I asked them, "Well, jury of two, since you are unknown to the principals here gathered, I ask you, can this woman be believed?" "Hell no, buddy. They were talking about how to communicate with each other when they're away from the office without you finding out." James, as she calls him, arrived with 2 throwaway cell phones and gave her one-its in her purse. They were planning to go to his house this afternoon. "Sorry, dear. The jury has voted for conviction. The judge will now retire and consider the sentence. By the way, keep the phone, Emily. You may need it soon. Come, Sparky. Let's go." To the guys, she named the dog. They laughed. Figures. When I resumed my walk, I felt bad awful, actually, but I thought I had made the right decision. I felt bad because I really loved Emily, but I rather thought she was now out of my life. In fact, I had lost my appetite for both her and for lunch. You can only lose someone's trust once. After that, you may say, "Of course I trust you, but it's not like before." I wondered who exactly James was to her. The obvious options were sex buddies, a male shoulder to cry on during the divorce she was planning, or the long-awaited love of her life and her new husband. I called my younger sister, who was also self-employed and a fact-checker for assorted media. In essence, if a news source claims so-and-so divorced in 1978, my sister checks the fact. She's very good at digging information out of the internet. "Hey sis, you online at the moment?" "Yes, why? You and Sparky get lost again?" "Nope, big secret though. It's completely legal but very confidential. You can't tell anyone in the family about what I need you to do. You're kidding." "Nope. Go online and look up James Morgan. He's about 60 years old and lives in Philly. I want to know all the dirt about him: credit rating, marriage, money, etc. If you have to pay to get into databases, I'll pay you back. Call me on my cell phone when you get some good stuff. The deadline is 5 p.m. "I can do it, John. But why the secrecy? What's happening? I think Emily may be getting interested in him. I need your help now." "You got it." Off the top of my head, I recall Morgan is from old money, but has none himself, bit of a rotter. Married to Elizabeth Waldrop Morgan, who has loads of bucks and is a society maven. James is a man about town who does nothing but is accepted socially because of his wife of many years. Don't loan him money and regard anything he says with suspicion. That's the nutshell biography. I'll get some specifics by 5 p.m. I especially wanted to know how much money he has. How the hell do you know all that off the top of your head? Well, like I say, he gets around and is in the papers quite a bit. That, and I did the fact checks on a book about his father a few years ago. I'm drawing a blank on the author's name, but it felt like I wrote half of the book. Great. Look forward to hearing from you later, and thank you. Well, well, well. Knowing the enemy is the key to winning the battle. As I was walking by anyway, I rummaged in the 2 or 3 trash cans nearest to our house, but didn't find what I now suspected I might find sooner or later. Obviously, the next step was Emily. She could have skipped work and beat me home or kept me waiting while she had sex with James, trying to come up with a good story. I guess the former if James was a passing fancy, and the latter if our marriage was over. Happily, it was the former. She was home, and perhaps James was a passing fancy. She greeted me earnestly. "John, I'm sorry, it wasn't what you think. James is going through a divorce and needed someone to talk with. That was all. And what? Look, I want you to tell me in detail with dates and places what's been going on, especially on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'm telling you, John, nothing's been going on. I love you. So this was the first time you dressed especially for him and hid the nail polish from me? You know that was wrong. The two of you hid across town, found to have an intimate lunch followed by an afternoon of sex in the house of the guy you wanted to help, where you could offer consolation for his marital worries in private. Make dear James feel less unloved out of kindness, but overcoming great personal disgust, hold his hand and give him a harden as you reassured his masculine vanity. You make it sound so shabby. It wasn't like that. So tell me how it was then, Emily. Surely it's not true that nothing happened between you. But nothing did happen. My cell phone rang. As I reached for my cell phone, Emily said, "Leave it, John. They'll call back." Grabbing the phone, I responded, "This conversation isn't going anywhere anyway. You're still in damage control mode." "Hello? No, I'm not okay. What was the outcome of that?" "It would seem so." "Okay, let me know. Bye." It was my sister announcing that James and his wife just celebrated their 30th wedding anniversary, and there was an allegation against James of rape and related pictures of at least 2 naked women posted on the internet. He allegedly got them into his study, screwed them, and went nuts in front of hidden cameras. He was okay up to that point, but then they showed up on an internet porn site he is suspected to have a part ownership in. It was hushed up, partly because it was all he said, she said, and there was no proof who posted the pictures. One of the women did get a good chunk of money out of James or his wife. No one knows. He owns no property, no business partnerships, and his net worth is about $200,000 and falling. Mine is about $300,000 and rising. James is a nice guy, and his wife doesn't understand him, right? Listen, Emily, I'd love to hear the fairy tale you've concocted, but I've not the patience. I'm going out for a while to lower my blood pressure. I walked back to the door. I'll be back in an hour or two, and then we'll decide what to do. She followed me to the door, repeating her claim of innocence, and I got the door shut in her face. I continued walking in the direction Sparky and I had been taking to get to our house, checking the trash cans as I went. In the bin on the corner, I hit pay dirt. Under some papers and such, I found a folded newspaper containing a discarded cell phone and a 3-pack of unopened condoms. I had a nice coffee in a local cafe and even indulged in a real cream puff. I read the paper there to soak up the hour. I figured wifey needed to come to her senses or to cook up a better story. I strolled back to the house, took a pee in the hall toilet, poured myself a glass of wine, and sat down with my red-eyed wife. So where were we? I believe you had floated the fiction that nothing happened. You were loyal and true, helping the lovelorn, which is a group you may soon be joining if you don't tell me exactly what's been going on. But I told you nothing happened. Nothing's been going on. Look, you silly cow, vague denials are not convincing. Stuff has been going on for a month or more. So tell me what's happening. I really don't know if you have anything to gain by doing so, but I assure you, you have nothing to lose. As things stand, you're on your way out the door. I know more than you give me credit for, and your story better align with what I do know. All right, I swear nothing happened. I began working with James back in April, and I was drawn to him. He has a certain magnetism. At the time, our marriage was going stale, boring sex, same old story, and I was feeling old. James is well off from old money and is connected to everybody who is anybody in this city. He has his problems too, and he began confiding in me. We started going out to lunch on Tuesdays so that we could talk. Certainly he didn't want his personal troubles to be office gossip. I think I did him some good. He was really broken up. His wife was sleeping around with unsuitable people. Oh, indeed. It's much better when they sleep around with suitable people, preferably their betters. Much less painful for the wrong spouse. That's not what I mean. Possibly, but it's what it sounded like. So, old father figure James began to woo you with that "my wife doesn't understand me" line. Where did he take you to dinner and what did he give you for gifts? He never gave me anything of consequence. So what little token things did he give you? Some perfume. Took me to a department store the second or third week to help him find a gift for his wife and wanted my advice. We went into the perfume department. He wanted something she might think was sexy to inspire her and wanted my advice on what scents might do that. I tried half a dozen and finally picked one, but I only said I thought it was very nice for his wife, of course. The next time I saw him, he gave me a bottle of it. It was quite innocent. Right. He suggested perfume for someone you never met. You picked it out, one you thought was erotic. He bought it for you and asked you to wear it to connect your body to his face. It was all so innocent that you never mentioned him, your shopping expedition, or the perfume to me. I take that back. You mentioned seeing him greeting your boss with a hug, kiss, and hand-grabbing the butt cheek. You said she laughed and kissed him as though they were once lovers. Your words, not mine. So where is this perfume that your other man gave you, the one that makes you feel like having sex? I'd like to see it, try it out actually. I left it at work. So you wore it just for him whenever he took you out because he bought it just for you, and he thought it got you wet. Knowing why you were putting it on must have been exciting. Mustn't bring it home, though, lest hubby find it. Our little secret. I get the picture. Where did he tell you to apply the perfume? I know it must look that way, but I wasn't thinking. I was being kind. I didn't want to hurt him by rejecting him, and he's an older gentleman, so he's not so politically correct as people our age. Again, where did he tell you to apply the stuff? As you know, I don't wear perfume, but I do know where to put it. He told me the usual places: on the wrists, the neck, between the breasts. I checked online. He told me correctly. Yes, certainly between your breasts, where he was planning to have his nose at some point. By the way, how much did this bottle cost? Why, I don't. I slammed my hand flat on the table with a smack, and she jumped. Cut the crap. Of course you know. He bought it right in front of you and had to have mentioned it to you. He wanted to impress you, so how much? Emily's lip quivered. It was outrageous, $275 for a small bottle. Now we're starting to see the bigger picture in context. Emily, what you've been doing is called letting the small head do the thinking. In your case, your vertical lips were whispering to you. But do continue. This was still in June, wasn't it? When did he get on to you about your clothing? My God, how just go on. Also, you need to tell me when and where you went with him. Well, the first 2 times it was just to a little Italian restaurant in South Philly. After that, mostly in the neighborhood where you saw us. It was the end of June. He said it was where it was happening. He and a number of others had been buying properties there, and the area was taking off. I met him at the Blue Squash. It's a Mexican fusion place. He gave me the perfume at lunch. I dabbed some on, and later the waitress asked what the scent was that I was wearing that had her a bit aroused. Did he get there first? She nodded. Yes. So he primed a waitress to say that when she, picked up the plates? She was clearing the table? No, he wouldn't have done that. I mean, how could he? Maybe he did. I mean, now that you mention it, I really can't imagine a waitress coming out with something like that right out of the blue. He did tell me a lot of crap about how I stirred him and such. And about your choice of clothing? Geez, that was nothing. Shortly after I first met him in the office, I think we had lunch right around the corner from work. Part of his patter of flattery and good advice, I had such nice legs and all, but I would benefit from a more professional look. I should wear dresses and skirts, but bare-legged with sandals and button-down blouses with a bit of jewelry. Anyway, the lunches were nothing much. We sort of commiserated with one another about life. Be specific. What did he lead you into bitching about? Well, where my career was going. I mean, John, James is a talent spotter in the city. He got my boss her job, and he's helped lots of other people get ahead. He connects talented people in one organization with an opportunity in other organizations. He was telling me about a job with the art museum that would be perfect for me. It was gossip, of course, but real inside stuff. They don't advertise the good jobs on Monster. And as he had confided in me about his marital troubles, I mentioned what you had said about our marriage and whatnot. Whatnot? Well, us having a chilly sex life right now and difficulties talking about important stuff, not seeing eye to eye, that sort of thing. Excellent conversation. He told you, in effect, stick with me, babe, and I'll get you a better job with more money, and you responded by telling him that you hadn't had good sex in ages. I bet his ears perked up when he heard that. Her eyes watered up a bit. John, you turn everything into something sordid. It wasn't like that at all. He was thoughtful and kind. He is a master, Emily. Everything he said had two sides. On one side, he was kind and protective, but on the other hand, it was demanding and controlling. We are both seeing the truth, like a coin having two sides. Anyway, go on. The first lunch date across town, the Blue Squash, was so-so. Well, after lunch, we took a cab back across town. When we were a couple of blocks from the office, the driver damn near took a corner on two wheels, and I flew across the seat and landed in a jumble on James. I was embarrassed to fall all over him like that. James had the driver stop the cab right there, and we got out and walked around the block to the office. I can read her like a book. You skipped something just now, didn't you? When you were thrown on top of James. It's not important, but, well, he did kiss me. But look, it wasn't premeditated or anything, just, being tossed into him, almost a reflex, a thing of the moment. That's all. I stood up. Well, I'll see you after supper. I'm going out to eat by myself. There's no point in continuing this conversation if you keep trying to hide what you were doing. If you're still here when I get back, we can try for the last time for complete honesty. What do you mean, John? I called the dog and put his collar on. Good day for the dog, all that walking. Bad day for me. I'll tell you what happened, you silly cow. Yes, you slid on top of him. You ever have a cab swerve like that for no reason? I never have. As he got in, he slipped the cabbie 20 and a note telling him to take a hard left turn towards the end of the ride. It was planned. You skidded across the seat onto him. He kissed you quite firmly and deliberately, and after a shocked pause, you kissed back with tongue work. The next thing you knew, he had his hands on your other places, right? She was horrified. I mean, how my educated guess was right on the mark. My God, John, why am I talking to you like you were there? I'm genuinely weirded out over this. Come on, Sparky, let's take a walk. This house is more than full enough of half-truths and outright lies with Emily here. Sparky had a nice walk, and I stopped at a small diner where the floor was clean enough for the dog to lay down. Not that he cared. They had a delicious lamb shank with fresh fava beans on special. When I got back, I poured another small glass of wine for myself and one for Emily while giving the dog the shank bone. I sprawled out in the chair opposite her. So where were we? Oh yes, you were trying to hold back the knowledge of your first wet tongue kiss with James and his first grope of your whatnot, plus how sexually excited you were. Now, I mentioned before that you were to tell me everything, and you're not doing that. I'm serious. I want the bald truth, or you can get your bum out the door right now. You can spend the next few weeks at James' house. Elizabeth is in France for the next few weeks, or you can live there as a maid with benefits for all I care. Am I clear on that? Yes, John, very clear. How do you know about Elizabeth Morgan? I don't know how you know all this, but that's what happened. We were both shocked at our instinctive reactions and stumbled over each other with apologies. We were practically at the office, and like I said, James had the cabbie pull over so we could regain our composure before we went into the building. There was a long pause, I suppose, where she was deciding if there was anything she dared not tell me. The week before last, we went to a really great West Indian French restaurant, really just a hole-in-the-wall place. So now you are at the point where you are voluntarily marking yourself with a scent and wearing clothes he approves of that give him easy access to your holes. Is this the week with the undergarments, or did that come earlier and you forgot to mention it? She burst out crying and ran out of the room, sobbing as she went. I sipped some wine and started to read the paper. She came out of the bathroom about 10 minutes later, re-dyed with a snivel or two. I am so sorry. You knew everything all along. Why didn't you say something and stop me? You never let on. Go on. The West Indian jerk, chicken neon lights, cheap tables and chairs, really spicy, great-tasting food. Yes, well, I don't know what brought it up, but James had been talking earlier about women willingly wearing uncomfortable underwear like girdles in the old days and nowadays bras and thongs and such. What cheap, uncomfortable things they were that most women didn't know what really good underwear was. Well, and I thought it would be the old line take off your underpants in the restaurant line. James is an original, all right, something new under the sun. He reached into his briefcase and handed me a very elegant box, saying, "Here, this is for you. Try them out and let me know which is more comfortable, these or what you have on now." Of course, I started to open it. Don't open it here. This is too shabby a place for these, as he tapped his finger on the box. Since I'm trying to be honest, we necked like teenagers in the cab back to the office. I knew I had a glum look on my face. Emily, this is really hard for me to kiss and tell. It's not so easy to hear it either, but we need the catharsis to heal. Go on. By the way, tell me about the panties. What was so special in the price? Honest, he's never been here. Honest. He dropped me off at the office in the underpants. I've never seen anything like them. They don't look the least bit erotic. Nothing like that at first glance. Plain even, but pure, tightly woven silk, carefully hand-stitched. You forgot to check the inside. The price was still on them. $75 each, and there were 3 pairs in the box, 1 red, 1 black, and 1 white. They were sort of like very short-legged boxer shorts, beautifully made, and in the crotch there was a silk pocket, and you could slide a cotton handkerchief-like thing into the pocket if you needed them to be more absorbent. I tried a pair on at the office, and they were heavenly-like. I was naked underneath, only rubbing like silk against me. Of course they were silk. I couldn't stand it. I was so hot I came home and attacked you that night. I don't remember seeing them. Be serious, I couldn't let you see them. I changed in the office and kept them in the office. The price wasn't left in the box by accident, you fool. He wanted to impress you. People with money to burn, it's important for the seduction that you be impressed. Go on to the next part. So last week we went to lunch at a French restaurant over on 2nd and Olive. I know you're going to ask, yes, I chose the white ones. I doubt that you chose them. You sure James didn't express a preference for the white ones? Well, maybe now that you mention it, he did. Anyway, it didn't matter, right? I thought he played her like the master he was, always asking for more, always something that would be easy to say yes to get her in the habit of agreeing, expecting to do things to please him. This is when he asked you to show him that you were wearing his gift there in the restaurant. She went orbital. Jesus H. Christ, John, did you put a hidden mic in my purse? I made sure nobody saw that, and he never mentioned or emailed or spoke about it. Answer me, goddammit, how did you know? There's no microphone. Go look in your various purses, see if there's a bug. Seeing is believing. As we mentioned earlier, I have a very active male mind, and I am very good at deductive logic, that's all. You barely understood what he said to you. I understand what he was doing. All right, whatever, we were sitting side by side in the booth, me on the inside. He asked to see his gift, so I looked around and lifted my dress only high enough for him to see my underpants. See, you interpreted the word his gift to be the underpants he gave you. Equally, his words referred to your glory hole, which was going to be his gift from you. 2 sides to everything. Your conscious mind understood one side, but subconsciously, you weren't innocent. You understood where things were going. I don't think so. Oh, crap. Maybe you're right. Anyway, we had a lovely prix-fixe lunch. The waiter spoke French, as does James, by the way, and he ordered for me. It was one of the best meals I've ever had. Mostly, we talked about the Democratic Party and what was really going to happen this fall and the likelihood that you would be working for the art museum by then. We did talk about that. It looks like a sure thing, even though you haven't been interviewed for the job. And you had sex in the booth after all that peeking under skirt, eating sophisticated food and talking. I am ashamed of myself, but it wasn't sex, more like heavy petting. Sicko. No, not at all. Very erotic. Sex in public, but hidden. A shared secret adventure. Further practice for you to submit to him. I bet he was ready again by the time you got in the cab. I had to, as you apparently already know. By the way, when was he going to put in a good word for you at the art museum? And did he mention who his contact was? She visibly relaxed at what she saw as an innocuous question. Actually, he did, just after we ordered. Next week, Wednesday, he was having lunch with Tom Hoover. He's the person to see, so you would have to be nice to him today. And as a correction, you were hoovering James. The guy at the museum is Thomas Hoving. It irritates him to no end to be called Tom, and Thomas would never go to lunch with an idiot like James. I have lunch with Thomas and Howard Goldman in a local pub 3 or 4 times a year. I offered to introduce you, if you recall, but you wouldn't have it. Well, we all value stuff we pay for more than what we can have for free. By the way, you didn't mention his gift of the nail polish. When did he give it to you? It arrived at the office last week. And the note that came with it, Chris, how could you know about the note? Emily, the note. Well, he knew I didn't wear nail polish, but he asked as a favor for me to wear it today. I just painted it on last night, just on your toes so you could wear shoes and hide it from me. A sheepish nod from wifey. Well, good. Another visible sign of your willingness to wear his mark and surrender to him completely. What did he tell you you were going to do this afternoon? Well, just that he had some antiques that had been in his family for 250 years and in a beautifully restored house. The museum borrowed several of the better pieces of furniture for the Rococo Chippendale special exhibit a few years ago. They have offered him over $1 million for the desk alone. Well, of course, I was interested. I mean, how often do you get a chance to see something like that? And what did you think you would have to do to please James and get the good word in with Hoving? Well, that's just it. I was calling a halt to it all. Him forcing me to please him was just the end. I mean, I'm married after all. Nothing more was going to happen. I swear I was done with him just as soon as lunch was over. So sweet, innocent you left the house this morning planning to end the affair before it exceeded Bill Clinton's definition of sex. Yet you told the office you would be gone for the rest of the day. To prepare to give James the bad news that it was all over between the two of you, you went to work prepared exactly as James asked you to, with shining scarlet red nails on your toes, with matching red silk underpants, with his perfume on your breasts. Face it, you were planning to spend the afternoon alone with him in his house. You had already exchanged French kisses, let him play with your body. You bought some condoms to use at his house, and now you think me dumb enough to believe you weren't planning to screw him. I didn't have any condoms. Oh, yes, you did. That's why you about crapped yourself when the guy said he gave you a cell phone and it was in your purse. If I had looked in your purse, I'd have seen this. I pulled the discarded cell phone out of my pocket. And these. I reached back into my pocket and tossed an unopened 3-pack of condoms lubricated and ribbed just like a good little whore. Be prepared. John, how? Where? From the trash can on the corner of 6th and Sycamore where you dumped them when you got out of the cab. That's where they're from. They were tucked together inside a folded newspaper. Look, you dumb whore, the son of a bitch was setting you up, and you eagerly allowed the old fart to seduce you. Oh, yes, you probably see the house, but in his study, in front of hidden video cameras, you would have had a pork infusion from that rotter, the least of the blue bloods. Then if you tried to break off with him, he would have had pictures that would ruin you and your marriage. In a month or two, when he had screwed you, he could do any damn thing he wanted with you. Oh, I can't believe that. He was really nice. Emily, he's played you like a violin from the start. He got your sympathy, flattered you, promised you entry to what you wanted. You have your nose pressed firmly against the windows of the houses of the upper class, and he knows it. He worked diligently, getting you to yield more and more control to him. The worst thing is, you decided that you wanted what you thought he could deliver, and were willing to have sex with him and dump me to get it. You knew very early on where this was going, didn't you? No, I really didn't. It was so gradual. Each thing was a little more than before, but nothing. I was a drag on your ambitions, holding you back from the right people. Those people run things. You think we are trash. Let him cover you with his underpants, wear them for him. Feel how the other half lives. Kisses, forced but impulsive, accidental, next time given as a right. The outrage of almost having a public fornication in a restaurant, for God's sake. Each previous liberty now is due. Sucking him off, the first of the 3 holes you were going to give him. Well, he didn't get you to his house to have sex with you today, but that's not his fault, is it? You were willing and eager until you panicked when you saw me? No, it wasn't like that. It was like I was under a spell. I love you, John. You think so, but you want to have sex with James. You think living with me will prevent you from reaching your goals? I'm too rough, too working class. I'm your starter husband. You want to be in society. That was James' hook. You swallowed it, hiding it from me because you knew if I found out it would end our marriage and it wasn't convenient for you to make the break. Not just yet. But I don't love James. I love you. You were dumb enough to think that James would divorce his wife and enjoy having you as his trophy wife. You would inherit a pot of money when he kicked off. You never checked. James has less than we have. He owns no property, none. He has a spendthrift trust. The 250-year-old furniture is crap. It's his wife's. His wife of 30 years had all the money and prestige. He's the joke of Philadelphia society, tolerated only because his wife gives out tons of money. The guy is a master, willing to screw anything that comes his way. The only guy in town with a part ownership and a spicy website that lost money. Well, guess what? Remember what I said about the wealthy screwing the wrong sort of people? You're not society, so his wife really doesn't care if he screws you. You are an unsuitable person. They both know he's not going to marry you. You're just the right sort for him to screw, like his wife screwing her personal trainer. Fun for her, no consequences. Hell quit when she wants him to. You picked the wrong one this time, but take heart. Learn from this and you may hit gold next time. I have to tell you that like an idiot, I did forgive her indiscretion, but I certainly didn't forget it. Bill Hoving interviewed her, and she did get the job at the art museum. After Christmas, we talked about starting a family, but before it could happen, Bill mentioned to me as a friend who had told him the truth of what happened between Emily and James, that Emily was perhaps enjoying a dalliance with a board member, Mark Fields. He swore me not to give him as the source of the rumor. Fields is distantly related to old money, but he grew up rough. His money actually comes from demolition and salvage yards. Mark was recently divorced and genuinely wealthy. I didn't fool around this time. I paid an investigator to look into it and got a batch of pictures them kissing, him with his knee pressed between her legs and with his hand on her bum, them walking with their arms around each other. I mentioned the lack of explicit pictures. John, unless they're truly nuts, screwing in public view or something like that, you're talking about huge costs, $20,000 to $50,000. First, you have to figure where and when they are going to do it. Then you have to get the cameras in place, and then get the pictures out, and then get the cameras back. You can't believe what it costs paying someone reliable to break into houses, install cameras and such. Probably be cheaper to hire someone to tail them. Give me a break. Look at them kissing with his hands on her bum. They're screwing each other. So I handed her divorce papers. The pictures were invaluable. She thought she was close to reeling him in, and the scandal would end her hopes. In exchange for her walking out with nothing but the clothing in her closet, I agreed to a quiet divorce and to never say a bad word about her, James, or Fields. What little regret we both had was for the departure of the dreams we once shared. I also agreed she could live with me for a maximum of 6 months, so the divorce would not upset her apple cart. Fields proposed, and she was gone in 3 months. You might ask why I didn't kick her out the door and piss on her head when she was lying in the street. The answer is that I try very hard not to hang on to anger. It corrodes the soul and can dominate your life. When it was clear that we had no life together, I was happy to get her out of my life and move on. It would do me no conceivable good to carry on a vendetta. Frankly, nobody in town cared one way or the other. But why introduce needless discord into your life? There are things I will fight for, but a wayward wife is not one of them. Plus, giving her half of our assets would have cost me about $150,000. After the divorce, I focused on my work and my dog, Sparky. My business thrived as the economy picked up, and I found myself increasingly engaged with restoring historic buildings. I even finished my book on restoring decorative plasterwork with Anthony. It was well received in the niche community of restoration experts, and I started getting more prestigious contracts. Life went on. I started attending more social events, not because I wanted to, but because it was good for business. I met new people, made new friends, and slowly, the wounds from my marriage healed. I even started dating again, though I was more cautious this time around. One day, about a year after the divorce, I ran into an old college friend, Sarah. We got to talking, and it turned out she had also gone through a rough patch in her personal life. We started seeing each other more often, and over time, our friendship blossomed into something more. Sarah was different from Emily in many ways. She was grounded, honest, and genuinely kind. As Sarah and I grew closer, I realized that I had found someone who truly understood me and appreciated me for who I was. We shared common interests, and she even had an appreciation for my work in restoration. We took things slow, but eventually we moved in together. Life with Sarah was simple and fulfilling. We enjoyed each other's company, took long walks with Sparky, and explored new places together. She became my partner in every sense of the word, and for the first time in a long while, I felt truly happy and at peace. Reflecting on my past, I realized that the experiences I had gone through had shaped me into the person I was. They taught me valuable lessons about trust, resilience, and the importance of surrounding myself with genuine people. My journey had been tough, but it led me to a better place, a place where I could finally start anew and build a future filled with hope and love. Thanks for tuning into this eye-opening story of betrayal and redemption. What would you do if you caught your spouse cheating with a wealthy, manipulative suitor? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real-life stories of heartbreak and healing. It had been nearly a year and a half since I had last slept in my own bed, and I was actually looking forward to it. A massive storm in the Atlantic that was headed towards us had caused me to order the shutdown of all the oil rigs pumping oil. It was a huge decision, but it had to be made based on the latest meteorologist reports. I couldn't risk further drilling on this new site until the weather cleared. This was the 7th well I was drilling in this area consecutively, and I didn't want any major problems that would put us 8 months behind while adding millions to the bottom line. The storm that was coming in was slow-moving and appeared to be rotating as it grew in size and strength, leaving mass destruction behind. The higher-ups believed we were in for a direct hit, but said it was my call. Typical of the big shots in their suits. If it was the wrong call, I'd be the fall guy. If it was right, they'd take the credit. Each of the 6 oil-producing rigs in the area was 25 nautical miles apart in a horizontal row because of the rock formation beneath the seabed. We were drilling once again at a 45-degree angle to reach the oil and natural gas buried below. We had spent the last 240 hours pulling up our drills and capping all the pipelines near the bottom of the seabed. It required precision timing with our deep-water diving crew. The shutting off of the wells at the seabed level had to be done manually and took about an hour to complete, key being keeping as much salt water out as possible. Thankfully, it had all gone rather smoothly. The oil flow to the producing rigs was cut off at the seabed in case the hurricane that was coming through did damage to our surface structures. All the crew that had been collected was transferred to the tankers for safe transport to the mainland. All piping was pulled up, sealed at both ends, and then locked down to ensure that none of the piping would sink to the bottom if they broke loose. We learned from other companies' mistakes that there was no room for error. We needed those pipe sections to stay afloat. A helicopter had brought the remaining few of us back to the coast. As per company policy, we wanted to leave as little an environmental footprint as possible. I wasn't scheduled to be off for another 3 months, so I knew my arrival home would be a complete surprise. I was looking forward to seeing my wife, our kids, and our next-door neighbors, who we had become good friends with. The nice thing about my position in the company was I had a base rate of pay year-round, even if I was sitting at home. But the major bucks were made when I was actually on the oil rigs. Over the last 5 years, it had paid off greatly. I was on the rigs basically 90 of the time, which tripled my base pay before the overtime, which for me was about 36 hours a week when on the rigs. It was customary to work 12-hour shifts when we were drilling, stopping only when exhausted. People with my expertise and knowledge in angle drilling were hard to find and paid accordingly. So far, I had a perfect record. I hadn't lost one drilling site yet. Thanks to the booming economy in the United States, drilling for oil was the busiest it had ever been. As a result, I was being paid top dollar because they couldn't find someone to replace me. The market for people with my skills was tight. When I originally got the latest promotion 6 years ago, I decided I wanted to retire early. So, with human resources cooperation, I had my paycheck divided in 3 ways. I had always got the max since day one. 30 automatically transferred to my investment broker, and the rest went directly into my wife and my bank account. What had gone into our joint account had been amazing. Having done that for the last 6 years, I had been building a lot of security thanks to how well the stock market and the economy were doing. My wife and I agreed years ago that once our house account reached a certain level, we would start putting huge bulk payments on our mortgage. Any excess after it was paid off would be split once a month and put in separate savings accounts. As a result, over the last 20 years of marriage, I had emptied my savings account 4 times when it reached the maximum insured amount by the feds and turned it over to my investment manager. My investment broker had been instructed to split my investment in 3 ways. 1/3 went into the company's stock, the second third in technology stocks like Apple, Microsoft, and Amazon, and the last third in dividend-paying blue-chip stocks. The investment reports were sent directly to my company email account. Since I was often at sea during tax time, my wife and I always filed separately, with her taking the deductions for our kids. If we got hit directly by the level 4 and growing hurricane, no one would be able to return to the rigs until they had passed through a 100 inspection. I was a stickler for details like this because I wouldn't put the men working with me's lives at risk. A team would be sent down to inspect the Gulf's bottom before reconnecting could be started. No matter what, it looked like I was getting at least 3 months off. Most didn't understand that the harder the ocean was rocked on the surface, the harder the shoreline got hit with water flow. The backflow, depending on how strong, could cause ripples on the seabed surface in reverse that went on until they petered out in nothingness. With this hurricane's slow movement, the longer it sat over our sites, the more it would cost in reconstruction. So, I'd be watching the weather over the next few days to get an idea of how long I would be off. I had been on the advisory team that had seen the birth of these new procedures after it had cost our parent company Texaco billions of dollars, because they had refused to follow our suggestions before the last disaster. A few $1,000,000 lost today saved us billions lost in litigations and governmental spurred fines later. Give anyone in the government the chance to rake your money these days, and it was an open invitation to be screwed over without even being kissed. Texaco had learned the hard way the real costs when the democratically elected governments treated those charged with environmental pollution like they were their pimp. A lot of questionable items got charged back against the corporation that could not be proven to be directly linked to the problems caused by Texaco. Many inside the industry believed the governments used the situation to their advantage to resolve things they themselves had created. Most in the oil industry had learned from that big screw-up and now budgeted for at least one long-term shutdown somewhere. They had adopted a protect-your-own policy at any cost. In a lot of ways, Texaco was still recovering. Sarah and I met our neighbors, Tom and Jessica Carson, shortly after we had purchased our current home. At that time, she had been 4 months pregnant with our first, a boy, Jason Allen Carter, who came into the world weighing 7 pounds. Emily Rose came less than 4 years later. The house had been too big for us, but we had grown into it. Both of our children were now almost out of their teens. Jason had just turned 21, and Emily was counting the days until she could get rid of her learners. Tom and Jessica, who were just married when we met them, had never been able to have children for reasons that had never been disclosed. Over the years, they had become an adopted aunt and uncle to our children and our best friends. Tom was a bit older than us, and Jessica 9 years younger. Jessica, in my eyes, was one of the most beautiful women I had ever met. If any woman could have convinced me to sway from my marriage vows, she was it. I could never see what she saw in Tom. Tom was just a good old boy who had no class, the morals of an idiot, and a constant liar. But apparently he could sell like nobody I knew. I was sitting in the Miami airport waiting for the next flight to Chicago, reading the Thursday local paper when a text message came through. It read, "Dad, when you get a chance, give me a call." It was from my daughter, Emily. I wondered for a moment if she had changed much in the last 16 months since I had been home. For hardcore oil men like me, it was the family that always paid the ultimate price of not having me around. That was why I had been seriously considering finding something else to do for the rest of my life. I called her instantly. "Hi, Dad," she said. "Thanks for calling so promptly." "What's up, sweetheart?" I replied. Sweetheart was my nickname for her because when she was young, she and I would spend many an afternoon picking enough of them to fill a small glass for her mother. That meant a lot to the two of us, but her mother would thank her and forget about it. I kept them in water and took out the dead ones daily until it was time to do it again. "I don't know where to start, Dad," Emily said honestly. "How about the bare facts?" I said, figuring it wasn't serious. "Okay, here goes," she said. "Jason's in the hospital being operated on. They are repairing his shoulder from a bullet that went right through it. Uncle Tom is in jail, charged with his attempted murder. Aunt Jessica is finally with child and is 4 months along." "Are you kidding me?" I said. "This sounds unbelievable." "Well, you said you wanted the bare facts," Emily said, "so that's what I gave you. The rest I feel needs to be explained to you before you talk to Mom." "Why do you feel that way, sweetheart?" I asked seriously. "The whole situation is complicated, and it's not as straightforward as it seems," Emily said. "Without going into detail, you always taught us that there are always two sides to the story, and that you had to figure out what the facts truly were before you could decide on what to believe." Emily had said it well. Over the years, I had said many times, "I have heard your side of the story from your point of view." Now I had to find out what the facts are before any decisions could be made. "Mom will tell you what she wants you to hear and possibly believe," Emily said. "In order to do that, she will skip over certain facts she doesn't want you to ever find out about. The situation going on with my brother and my aunt and uncle also involves her." "Okay, sweetheart, I'm about to catch a plane to Chicago, and we'll be catching the first flight in the morning back to Jackson," I said. "Skip school tomorrow, and I will catch a taxi home when I arrive. By that time, your mother will have gone to work." "You're coming home?" "That's great. Mom's in New York," Emily said. "Macy's wanted all their store managers in this district at head office for a big meeting on how to increase their sales and reduce their overall inventory levels in an attempt to reduce their operating costs. This region is still one of the few regions still making a good profit. Upper management is trying to figure out what they are doing differently that makes this district successful." "Has she been informed?" I asked. "No, I'm still at the hospital waiting to hear from the doctor," Emily explained. "I'm outside calling you because I thought you should be the first to know. I really don't want to involve her until after we had talked. Let someone know in billing that I will be in with our medical cards first thing in the morning," I said. "Thanks, sweetheart, for texting me. Love you. See you in the morning." After saying goodbyes, I got ready to go through security and head for the waiting area. It gave me time to reflect on the four of us and our relationship with each other over the years. For all of our married life, I had worked the rigs, starting from a grunt and working my way up. Out of boredom while at sea, I had gotten serious and worked on getting all the degrees I could in my chosen field. That started the journey to where I was today. I thought back to the day I met Sarah. She had pulled into Walmart to pick up a few things and had been going a bit too fast. She didn't see the black ice, was unable to slow down, and bumped the piece of junk I was driving at the time. She got out of her vehicle all flustered and bent out of shape as she was driving her father's car. There was no real damage to her bumper, and as for my small truck, one more scratch or two was not going to make a difference. After parking what we were driving, we went into the Subway restaurant inside Walmart, and she bought me a 6-inch sub and a coffee for being a good sport about it. Sarah, when she took off her winter coat, got my attention. She was a tight package with all the curves where most men wanted them. She was one of the few females I could easily spend hours with. Not only was she good-looking, but her personality shone bright. It was her, I got to admit, that got me to get serious about life. Until then, I was just a good old boy, enjoying life and taking advantage of whatever opportunities with the females that came along. I loved to party, be with the crowd, and would go back to the rigs flat broke, ready to sober up and clean out. Sarah, the first time I saw her, I knew she wanted to do something with her life. That first weekend we spent together gave me a purpose and a direction. Within that month, I went back to education to improve myself. The more we got involved with each other, the more determined I became. I guess she got the same impression of me, for her parents had often said I had made her become a better person. 9 months later, we were engaged. 6 months after that, we were married. I started working offshore on the big rig shortly afterward because the superiors had seen a big change in everything I did. I have to thank Sarah for that. I started making what was considered big money back then. Little did I know back then how addictive that paycheck would become. Looking back at that time, I guess we had each forced each other to grow up and become adults. So far in our walk of life, I had no regret. Sarah had gotten a business degree from a business college and had started out her career as a department manager in the women's clothing section of Macy's, with a base wage and commissions. Retail merchandising to her was an art that few really knew and understood. She had excelled at it, and every couple of years found herself working in a new department. Once she had proven herself in each section, she was offered a junior management position. When the smallest store manager position became available, she was asked to fill in until someone suitable was found. Little did anyone know that the training and teaching she gave the staff would cause the store's sales and reputation to grow. The area supervisor came in one day and said the store manager position was hers. 4 years ago, she had finally been given the store manager position in their store in Jackson. This was the 4th time she had been moved since becoming a store manager. It was by far the largest. It was nice because she now worked within 15 miles of home. While putting her stamp on it, its sales began to take off, making it one of the fastest-growing stores sales-wise in the division. Tom Carson was an independent wholesaler who made his living driving his route, selling the tools his suppliers provided him. His customers were the average Joe who fixed and repaired cars for a living. I wasn't sure how much he made, but by the way he spent, I knew he wasn't suffering. I just didn't understand why our area was not part of his territory. Tom knew everybody and had a knack for getting things when others couldn't, always coming home with unexpected expensive gifts for his loving wife. He was a puzzle to me because he came across as simple and carefree. The other thing I found hard was that he always paid everything with cash. He didn't like using credit cards or debit cards for anything. The only bank account they had was in his better half's name. Jessica had been with the Miami Herald newspaper for years and was not only a staff reporter but had worked her way up to becoming an assistant editor. She was a very respected person in the community and served on several boards. Her giving and loving nature had made her a star in our community. If you looked at us together, you would wonder how we could be friends. Jessica and Tom were African-American. Sarah and I are English-American, 6 generations deep. When the kids were small, whenever we needed downtime, Jessica would spoil our kids rotten when they were out and about with them. If people asked them, Tom would always say we adopted them. He got a kick out of it because a lot of people believed him. For him, it was an even bigger kick when they started calling him Uncle Tom. Our kids, growing up, were spoiled rotten by them. I felt my family had been blessed by having them in our lives. For most of my flight, I was trying to figure out what was going on and what this was all about. All 4 of us had busy lives, so to me, nothing I had heard made sense yet. Emily had made it clear the relationship between us all was the thing that tied it all together. I had a 2-hour wait in Chicago until I could catch the connector flight home. If you know the airport in Chicago, you know how dumb a setup it is. A few years back, they had closed the indoor smoking areas just to piss off the smokers. The restaurants open at that time of day were the pits. If you wanted to smoke, you had to go out of the airport and come back in, going through security again. Yet there were those sitting and vaping right out in front of you. Now they were saying it wasn't the actual tar and nicotine that caused cancer, but the act of the smoke lingering in the area that caused the problem. The one thing they never discussed or disclosed was the fact that it was all in our genetics. It was our DNA that caused the problem more than what we were actually doing. I knew with the problems some were having because of buying illegal products that contained oils that did damage to the lungs, it wouldn't be long until the health community would be pushing that those who cooked using pure or synthetic oil start using nose and mouth covering masks while cooking because of the danger of breathing oil into their lungs. It seemed that it only took a few idiots for the mass media to make it seem extreme. I was standing outside the airport, having finally given in to one of the pleasures I had in life. Yeah, I was smoking a Marlboro full-flavor cigarette. One of the rewards of working on offshore deep-level rigs was that the cartons they provided at the small retail store didn't have all the taxes attached to them. The average price for a carton of my favorite smokes was less than $30. On this last trip home, I had brought 8 cartons with me. One of the rules I had installed was no alcoholic beverages on the rigs. The men were against it, but their wives sent thank you letters because of the money that was saved. It also made it a lot easier to achieve the goals I had set. To the men's wives, I walked on water. To the men beneath me, I was what came out of a horse's. One of the joys of being an American is that we had to pay major hidden taxes so our political representatives could blow millions over mistruths and without any guilt or responsibility. If they overspent, they could always find a new tax to bring in that within 2 months would be hidden from the general public's mind. The tax laws in our country were so thick that it would be easier to understand a woman before you would comprehend it. I had always been a miserable failure at both. Most didn't know that in 1823 the federal government passed a 1% import tax to help support the First Nation people who they had marginalized and written off. When I thought of that old tax law that had never been rescinded, the question was, did they get any of it? "Hey, Jim, it's been a while," said a blast from the past as I stood there smoking. "I see you never gave it up since high school." "God damn, it's Sam," I responded with a huge smile. "For an old fart like me, you're looking good." "Where you headed?" he asked. "Back to Jackson." "That's where I live with the wife and our 2 kids," I replied. "Got sent home because of the weather from the rigs." "You still doing that?" he said with a grin. "When are you going to stop being a redneck and get a real job like the rest of us?" "Working on my retirement," I said. "Maybe sooner than you think. I'm going to find something that will keep me at home at night. When I break it to Sarah, she will be surprised." "Did you marry Sarah Jones?" Sam asked in total surprise. "Yeah, I met her while working on the rigs in Louisiana when I was home for a break," I said. "At that time, she was at business college." "I'm surprised," he said. "My younger sister and she hung out together when they went to high school. At that time of her life, the only boys that interested them were African American. My sister ended up marrying one. He divorced her after the birth of their second, then disappeared. For her, it was a hard life for a few years. Now she is a lawyer and doing great. We talked for a few more minutes, then followed each other through security. That short chat was about who was still around from our glory days and what they were now doing with their lives. I learned he was married and had 3 kids. At last, I was on the final leg of my journey. I was looking forward to getting home to talk to my daughter. Our last conversation had been on my mind the whole trip. The taxi dropped me off at my door. I carried my own suitcases. My daughter hugged me tightly. I could still tell that she was overtired and had been crying. After the usual greetings and my asking how she was handling it, we got down to the nitty-gritty details. "Dad," Emily started, "over the last 2 years I had noticed a change in Mom's routine. I first thought it was because of the huge promotion to the Jackson store in the mall with her new responsibilities. I reminded her things would have to change at first, but then a pattern would begin to form. After the first few months, by that time, things should have settled down." "What was the thing that caught your attention?" I asked. "At first I thought nothing of it," Emily explained, "until one Saturday night. Nana and Grandpa took us out to Outback for supper. I was sitting back in the corner by the women's washroom with my face to the back wall when I saw Mom coming out. I got up out of curiosity and followed her. The person she was having a private romantic dinner with was Uncle Tom. That was interesting because Saturday nights, Jessica always worked very late, putting the big Sunday morning edition together for printing late Saturday night, as it was the biggest and thickest paper of the week. Mom had always worked Saturday nights until closing at 11 p.m. and Saturdays because they were the busiest time for the store. My boyfriend, who was 18 at the time, and I started touring a bit on Saturday nights just to discover what we could find, Emily went on. We found that Uncle Tom always left his huge truck locked up behind the Macy's receiving bay. Mom would drive her car around to meet him around 6 p.m. When he climbed into Mom's car, he took over driving with her sitting right beside him. Dad, she was sitting the same way I would with my boyfriend. There wasn't any space between them. I didn't like the story that Emily was telling me, but I believed she was being honest in her observations. I told Jason what we had learned, my daughter explained. He told me to leave it in his hands while he and a few friends looked into it. Working as an apprentice in the Ford dealership, he has met quite a few people. It wasn't long until he learned that Uncle Tom has been renting a small apartment and was there every Tuesday afternoon and Saturday evening with his lover. He was the one who broke the news to Aunt Jessica. I took my daughter's hand into mine and said, "I believe you. Go on." Aunt Jessica turned to Jason for support and comfort while she was trying to figure out what she was going to do, Emily explained. I don't know who seduced whom, but Jason and Aunt Jessica became lovers. From what Jason told me last night, it's been going on for over a year. It's Jason's child she is carrying. Uncle Tom is sterile, according to what we have been told. He had mumps as a child. I got up and went to my liquor cabinet and pulled out a bottle of sour mash. From what my daughter had been explaining, I knew I needed a stiff one. I got out a glass and poured 3 ounces into it, then came back to sit across from her. "How long have your mother and Uncle Tom been lovers?" I asked. "At least 20 months that I know of," my daughter replied. "They have been getting together Saturday nights and Tuesday afternoons quite regularly. So they were already involved with each other the last time I was home," I said quietly. "What happened yesterday that caused Jason to get shot?" I asked. "Mom wasn't there to be with Uncle Tom, so he came home," Emily explained, "to find his wife and my brother in the marital bed doing the horizontal tango. In anger, he shot Jason by accident while the 3 of them were arguing." "What a mess," I said. "I should go see Jason because I need to hear his side of the story, but not for a few days. Later today, you and I will have to give our medical coverage information to the hospital, and I have to find a good divorce attorney. When is your mother due home?" "Sunday morning sometime," Emily said. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "Get a taxi to pick me up and take me to a car rental company, then find a hotel to stay in because I can't stay here. When I come back with the rental, we will go get a few things done. I want to hear you call your mother tonight with your speaker on your cell so I can record it for my lawyer." The tears were flowing freely from my daughter's eyes. She knew her mother's own conduct had left me no choice. I could tell she expected this from me. Through sobs and tears, she said, "I have been dreading this day for months. I was praying that it would go away, but it only gets worse. Dad, I want to live with you if I can." "Sweetheart, if that's what you truly want, then I will find a way to make it happen," I said. "I'm home for at least 3 months. That gives me time to find a place to live and a new job. For now, it's best that your mother believes that I am not home." "You mean it, don't you?" she said. "Yes, I do. But it might mean that you will have to change schools," I stated. "I don't think I can remember ever being hugged so tight in my life." Emily didn't want to leave my side. So when the taxi came, she went with me. Before we left, we called the school so we wouldn't be contacted by them. Jessica saw me climb into the taxi, so she knew that I was home. She texted me saying, "I need to explain things to you." I texted back, "I know. We'll contact you after I have done a few things. Daughter right now is emotionally upset and scared. She needs me now." At first, it surprised me to learn that Jessica was at home, but when I thought it out, it made sense. After what had transpired yesterday, she had her own emotions to deal with. I picked out a small import to drive because I knew my wife would never believe I would in a piece of junk like that. I had been a Ford man all my life. We left Jackson and drove over to Marble Hill, where I got a room for a week in a cheap motel. I chose that area because it was far enough away that no one would look for me there. After checking in, we went to Southeast Hospital to present our insurance cards and sign the forms. After that, we went to lunch. Jason called his sister and they talked for a bit. We learned that Jessica was with him and that he knew I was home. I heard my daughter tell him for now to keep that fact to himself. Emily said we were going to inform his mother tonight about what was going on. Our first stop after lunch was a real estate office. I wanted to see what kind of business was for sale in the surrounding area. Surprisingly, what was available was just not appealing to me yet. I asked the broker to keep their eyes open. I made arrangements to go look at a few houses on Monday. I asked the broker to focus on those ready for occupancy. After getting back home, I called my superiors to inform them what was going on. I felt that I owed them, and that they had the right to know that after over 20 years with their organization, there was the possibility that I was going to have to quit. My daughter, still a minor, wanted to live with me. The final thing I did was set up a lawyer's appointment for Tuesday using my cell phone. I found our house account was sitting with $60,000. My personal savings account now held $300,000. With the house paid off, we were sitting pretty. With the way we had things set up, the divorce was going to be straightforward. One of us would have to pay out the other's half of the house, and we would split the funds in the house account. "Sweetheart, I will be back in a few," I said. "I'm going over to have a talk with Jessica. It's time I heard her version of it all." Jessica let me in as soon as I knocked. Just by looking at her, I could see the stress she was under. "I'm sorry, Jim," Jessica said. "You should not have had to come home to a mess like this. Do you want a drink while we talk it out?" "Sure, it's been a long, hard day. I'm still trying to come to grips with it all myself." As she poured us a stiff drink, I said, "Just start at the beginning, where it started to involve you." "I was busy working at my office when I got told Jason needed to see me in private," Jessica said. "Knowing it was near your anniversary, I thought he was planning a party. He told me in private that Emily and Tom were having an affair. I didn't believe it. I accused him of lying and asked him to prove it. He drove me to my husband's love nest. What we saw through the open window of his ground-floor apartment that day left no doubt. Tom and your wife having sex. I was devastated. With that said, she took her cell phone out and brought a few captured images up to show me. I could see the date they were created. It verified the timeline that Jessica and my daughter had given me. I now had seen the digital proof. "Jessica, could you text me those images, please?" I asked. "I will need them for my divorce petition." This may not mean much, but I learned very early this morning that when going through high school, my wife only dated African-American boys. Jessica's eyes got wide with that revelation, then said, Maybe those innocent touches down through the years were not so innocent as we thought. Could she have been chasing him for that many years? We will never know, I said. So how did you and Jason happen? Like you, Jim, she said. He was there just holding my hand, giving me his moral strength and support. One night when I was in tears, he was holding me while we were sitting on the couch. I admit we were drinking some wine, but we were nowhere near being drunk. I raised my head towards his and kissed him. He kissed back. That kiss was filled with more love than I have had in a long time. The closeness we shared that night slowly evolved, Jessica admitted. About 8 months ago, we crossed the line. He brought me back to life again. It was not done by me out of revenge. I could relate. My job, the distance, and time away had created the same problem with my wife. We both knew it, but couldn't be honest enough with each other to admit it. Although we were married, we were strangers sharing the same house. Each time I came home, we had to re-establish our relationship to bring some balance to it. Then I would have to go back for at least another 8 months. That was one of the big reasons I was seriously considering giving my career up. Jessica watched me, waiting for a response, so I said, "Thank you for your honesty. I will let Jason work it out between the two of you." Jason declared his independence long ago. I will support both of you going forward, no matter what the two of you decide to do. Just so you know, your timeline of the events and the images have been confirmed by another. Thank you, Jim. That speaks volumes. Jason said you would approach our relationship that way, she said with eyes full of tears. What set Tom off yesterday was the fact that he had been served with the papers for the divorce. He was under court order already to stay away. It was at that moment the shooting made sense. Tom always had lost his temper when things didn't go his way and always reacted without thinking. He had come home to put Jessica in her place. Discovering her in bed with Jason, he had become enraged because Jason would stand in front of Jessica just as I would have. I knew that Tom owned a gun because he had it for protection because of the rough areas he went into because of his work. Jessica, for reasons I can't explain for the next few days, it must be believed that I am not in town, I said. That's why I got the rental car. Emily has already made it clear she wants to live with me. I left with what I had come for. I had heard her truth and gotten proof that Tom's and my wife's affair had started before my son's involvement. When I got home, I sat down and disclosed everything that I was told to my daughter. Dad, it makes a lot of sense. Everyone knows that Jason is very mature for his age, Emily pointed out. It's given credibility by the images you have and Jason's full disclosure to me. From the time he got his first car, I said, he was always with an older woman if he was dating. I guess I am at fault for that. With me not around a lot, he stepped up and became the de facto man of the house. I wasn't much older than him when he was born, I said. I realized before I went over that no matter what I felt, my son was going to do what he was going to do, whether I like it or not. It's their lives to live, so we have to let them. Dad, do you think it's time I called Mom and let her know what's going on? My daughter asked. First, go to Play Store and see if you can find an app that will allow you to record your own conversations, I said. Emily started looking. It was frustrating because after downloading, we would test it out. Most she tried had been misleading in their hype. Finally, we found one that did the function that we wanted. I made sure I downloaded the same one. It took 3 rings before Sarah answered. Emily had already turned the speaker feature on. Mom, I'm going to need a note for missing school today, Emily said. Why did you miss school? Are you sick? Sarah said. No, I was at the hospital most of last night with Jason, Emily explained. So by the time I got home, I was too exhausted to go to school. What happened to Jason? Sarah asked, voicing genuine concern. He took a bullet to the shoulder that was fired from a gun at close range, Emily stated. What? Are you serious? How is he? Is he going to keep the full use of his shoulder? Sarah asked with a worried voice. How did it happen? Don't leave anything out. It happened because you weren't where you usually are on Tuesday afternoons, Mom, Emily said firmly. What the hell does that mean? We both know that I would be at work. Are you implying Jason got shot at the store? Sarah said, knowing it was a lie. No, Mom. It means that you weren't at 644 Main Street, apartment 4, with Uncle Tom, Emily said. It was interesting because the silence from Sarah was deafening. After gathering her thoughts, she said, "How long have you known?" "Almost since the beginning. I discovered Uncle Tom and you by accident when you were having dinner with him on a Saturday night," Emily said. "It took a few weeks for me to learn where Uncle Tom parked his tool truck to wait for you to drive around to pick him up. When I told my brother, he said he would follow it up and did," Emily said, continuing on. "It was he who discovered Uncle Tom's and your love nest. He took Jessica over there and they were able to catch pictures of him having sex with you. They're actually quite graphic." I could hear the sounds of sobbing coming from Sarah. Then she said, "I'm going to be flying home Sunday morning. You and I will have to sit down and work out this situation before your father comes home. Mom, there is more. Last Tuesday, Uncle Tom got served at your love nest while waiting for you. I guess the short notification to go to New York made it impossible for you to let him know," Emily said. "He went home in a rage to put his wife Jessica back in her place and to make it clear there was not going to be a divorce. Tom was making it clear he was going to continue sleeping with his side piece and stay married. What he did not know was because of Uncle Tom and your conduct, you had pushed Jessica and Jason together." I stuck up my thumb to imply that I was agreeing with what she had said. Emily got a big smile on her face because she realized that what she had said really explained it all. Uncle Tom, going against a court order, went into his former home and caught Jessica and Jason together, she explained. In anger, he grabbed a gun and shot him. "My question is, what do you want me to tell Dad when I call him? How and where are Jason and Uncle Tom now?" Sarah asked. "Uncle Tom is in jail facing charges for attempted murder," Emily said. "Jason should have a full recovery, but will have to go through major rehab." "So, Mom, again, what do I tell Dad? Or do you want him to get all the gory details from the online newspaper tomorrow morning?" "Give me a few minutes to gather my thoughts, and I will call him myself," she said. "It's best that I handle the situation with him from my end." "Okay, Mom," Emily said. "Congrats. You're going to be a grandmother. Jessica is 4 months pregnant, and according to Jason, it's his. We also know that you're going to be served by Jessica as soon as you get home." Sarah lost it big time. I didn't care because I felt after what she had done, the payback for her conduct was justified. Emily waited for a response, and when she didn't hear one, ended the call. With that call over, I got up and poured 2 sour mashes. In one, I added ice and Coke. In mine, I kept it straight. Setting it down in front of her, I said, "I'm going to have an adult drink with my daughter because she handled herself better than most adults would. I'm very proud of you, sweetheart." We both waited for the phone call to come. We were done with our first drink together as adults, and I was making us each a second when my cell phone rang. I let it go to the answering service. When I sat down with our drinks, I turned the speaker on and dialed the service. It was funny because all Sarah had said was, "Call me when you get a moment. Uncle Tom has accidentally shot Jason, and we need to talk about it." "Dad, before you respond, let's see what the online newspaper says about it," Emily said. She got up and brought her laptop back. When we got in, we learned the whole story had made the front page. The reporter had it all. The headline read, "Husband shoots wife's lover." It explained everything in detail. The relationship between the 4 of them was exposed to the world. It was amazing how the whole complicated mess was explained. What shocked us the most was that we learned that Tom Carson, with the freshly updated story on the newspaper's website, wasn't his real name. He had been using a stolen identity for years. His real name was Robert John Williams, who had a record for petty theft. When they ran his fingerprints, his real identity was revealed. The real shocker was that there was an outstanding warrant for his arrest for possession of a controlled substance for the purpose of distribution. There was something about the name that registered in my mind. I thought about it for a few. Then it came to me. The first thing I did was look up the phone number of the police department and told the desk officer about his large tool truck and what area he covered. I suggested that he get a search warrant and check into it. When he asked why, I answered by saying, because no one who knows him has ever seen him sell anything out of it. I went into Facebook and typed the name of Sam Douglas into the search. After going through a bunch of them, I finally found his face. After reading his profile, I called information and got his phone number. I called it, and a woman answered. It was his wife. "Ma'am, I'm an old school chum of your husband," I said. "I ran into him at the airport in Chicago this morning and had a good long chat. The reason I am calling is that I need the name of his younger sister Ashley's former husband who disappeared. His name is Robert John Williams," Sam's wife said. "He owes over 18 years of back child support. You might want to inform her he's sitting in the Jackson, Missouri jail. He was using a false identity and was using the name Tom Carson." "Are you serious?" she asked. "Yes, I am. And do me a favor," I said. "Let Ashley know that he was also having an affair with my wife, whose maiden name was Sarah Jones." "Oh my God, Ashley still talks about the wild things they did back then," she said. "This is going to hit her hard. Can I give your number to Ashley?" "Please do," I said. "My soon-to-be ex-wife will be arriving home on Sunday." Emily was in shock. To be honest, so was I. I texted Jessica and asked if she was home to come right over. "Dad, Mom knew who he was the first time you met them," Emily said. "What other lies are we going to learn about?" "I don't know, but it's beginning to look like they were reliving the glory days," I said. "I wonder what else the two of them are into." We took a few minutes to digest all the information we had just uncovered. It was maddening in a way because the more my daughter and I learned, the more questions it raised. When we heard the knock, Emily went to answer the door. I got up and made Jessica a sour mash and Coke, which I handed to her when she came into the kitchen. The first thing we showed her was the updated online article. It was an eye-opener to her. Emily had remembered to text me the conversation between my wife and her, so I played it so Jessica would have knowledge of what was said. "There's now a very good possibility that Tom's and your marriage may not even be legal," I said. "You best have your divorce lawyer look into it." "I've been at the hospital most of the day," Jessica said. "I was just returning home when I got your text. There is no way he is going to get bail." "It gets worse," I said. "He has 2 children, a daughter and a son, now fully grown. His ex-wife was Sarah's best friend in high school." The look of shock on Jessica's face my daughter and I would remember for the rest of our lives. "They knew from the first day we met," Jessica said as she started crying. "If he had kids, why didn't I get pregnant before this?" "It looks like he most likely had a vasectomy before he met you," I said. "It's the only thing that makes sense." I got quiet for a few. The 2 ladies talked about what they knew so far. I was trying to figure out what else was going on. My gut was telling me there was more to this story than we knew. "Ladies, I think what we should all be doing is going through everything in our houses," I said. "Something in this puzzle is missing, and I'm wondering if Sarah was helping Tom in whatever else he was doing. With his history of dealing with drugs, I have to wonder if he could have hidden things. If he did, was Sarah in on it?" "That sounds far-fetched," Jessica said. "I know he drove his truck daily and would be gone overnight." "Okay, Jessica, that sounds fair," I said. "Sarah kept his secrets." "Why?" "You must have seen his booking records and received a lot of bills for the stock he purchased," Jessica said. "Then he would have gotten monthly statements via emails or direct mail," I said. "Have you seen any of them? Did you ever see him transfer money back to them?" "No, but I know Tom's Outlook account." "We could go take a look," she said. We went over to her house and opened up the home computer. After she got signed in, she brought Windows Mail up. Of course, it showed nothing. "May I?" I asked. In the search box at the bottom corner, I typed in Hotmail. The symbol for Outlook came up. I clicked on it, and what was not originally visible in Windows Mail came up when the browser opened up. Tom had 4 unknown email accounts linked to the one. It was clear to us all he had been hiding something. Jessica called the police station first thing in the morning to give them the access information for Tom's emails. I said, "I'm going home to go through the whole house to see if I can find money or drugs. I want to make sure our house was not used for anything. I will do the same." "What should I do if I find anything?" Jessica asked. "Call me and I will come over and we will discuss what to do." "I'm going to be going through our home with a fine-tooth comb," I said. "It's apparent we need to protect our own butts. Dad, do you really think Mom would allow Tom to store stuff in our home? Emily asked. Based on their relationship, I can no longer assume that she wouldn't, I said. Look first in the spaces you would not normally go into unless it was for something specific. Emily and I went home. I dug out a flashlight and made sure it worked. I'm going out to the garage to access the attic, I explained. No one should have been up there since we had the extra insulation pumped in. I had to move the rental, got the ladder set up and climbed up to undo the clasp. Using the high-density flashlight, I looked around the room to find nothing. I went to turn around on the ladder to look behind me. When I reached up to grab something to support me, that's when I felt something. I climbed down and turned the ladder around and climbed back up. There, sitting in a row, were 5 huge garbage bags, the type I would haul to the road once a week. When Emily heard the thud of the first bag hitting the floor, she came running. "Pull it out of the way," I asked. I got 4 more of these to drop. When the second one hit the floor, it split open. Bundles of 20 bills dropped out. I immediately thought, if there was money here, were there drugs in Jessica's house? Once the 5 were down on the garage floor, I noticed another flat bag lying to the side. I picked it up and started down the ladder, pausing to lock the entrance to the attic back up. "Emily, run over to Jessica's and tell her what we found while I check these bags out," I asked. It took them about 5 minutes to get back. All 5 bags were a quarter filled with bundles of cash. The 6th bag was Tom's ledger. "Jim, can you come over and check out my place?" Jessica asked. "Right after I call the cops," I replied. I phoned the police, who said they would send a patrol car over. Jessica, Emily, and I went over to her place, taking Tom's ledger with me. In checking out her attic, I found a small chest of bricks of cocaine. I put the ledger with it. I redialed the police and requested they send a detective along with the patrol car. It took us more than 3 hours for the police officers to take possession of the money and the drugs. We had to explain everything from the time of the shooting until now. When the detective left, he said they would be taking my wife into custody for questioning when she returned to Jackson on Sunday. "Right now, we can't link the money to anything," the detective said. "It will be counted, recorded, and locked up. We will record it as being voluntarily turned in by you, Mr. Johnson, as found money." "Thank you, officer," I said. "What about the drugs we found at my neighbor's house? Because Tom Carson lived there," he said, "and his wife, with your help, turned it in. She won't be charged, but he will." "Will you be back with a search warrant on either of us tomorrow?" Jessica asked. "Detective, you best write down my husband's email account and his password. Go into Outlook directly using a browser. It's Tom Carson at Outlook, password White Trabbit," I said. "I don't feel we have to," the detective said. "If you find some small quantity of drugs, flush it down the toilet and get rid of it. I believe the bulk of what Tom has is in his truck, which is being towed as we speak to the impound until we get a court order allowing us to search it. Thank you for his email account information. I will be requesting a court order in order to search it." We watched the police leave, and I said, "I don't know about you, but I need a good stiff drink." Jessica went over and secured her house, then joined us. "Are you going to let Mom know what's going on?" Emily asked. "I think if we did, it would tip her off if she knew the money was there," I said. "Best leave what we know in the detective's hands. Tomorrow, while you're in school, I will finish going through both houses to make sure there is still nothing lingering." "Thanks, Jim." "I would appreciate it," Jessica said. "Jessica, I will need you to follow me to the car rental company tomorrow," I said. "Things have changed. There is no way I will leave my daughter by herself." "Can I sleep here for the night?" Jessica asked. "Sure, you can sleep in what used to be Jason's room," I said. The 3 of us were awakened by the sounds of police sirens in the middle of the night. The police had put an unmarked car to watch our residences. They had caught someone trying to break into Jessica's house. It was around 5 a.m. our time that I called my wife. I was sitting outside on the patio drinking my first coffee while having a couple of smokes. She answered right away. "Jim, it's a freaking mess here at home. Tom has accidentally shot Jason," Sarah said. "The bullet went clean through. Thankfully, he is going to recover fully. The police are holding Tom until they finish their investigation." "Have you talked to Jessica to see what she knows?" I asked. "No, Emily and I have been spending most of our time at the hospital," she replied. "I will talk to her in her office sometime today and let you know her side of the story. Any word as to when you will be home?" "We would all like to see you," I said. "Right now we are watching the weather and battening down everything," I said. "If the order comes in to evacuate, I could be home sooner than you think." It took her a few seconds to respond. "Are you serious?" I replied. "Check the weather reports. We have a hurricane heading our way. We could get the order to evacuate in hours. If that happens, I'm headed home. Promise me you call me so I can make sure everything's ready at home for you if that happens, okay?" Sarah asked. "Okay," I said. "Talk to you later. Bye." I now knew from the short conversation she could not admit the truth and never would. It also told me that any feelings she had left for me were completely dead. I now could proceed with the divorce without any remorse. After dropping Emily off at school, Jessica followed me in my truck so I could return the rental. We then returned the hotel key and picked up my luggage. I suggested that until I returned home, she should visit Jason and get his apartment key so she could temporarily stay there. The real estate broker and I looked at 4 houses, all previously owned, and I said, "Let's go newly built." The first one we looked at came with 2 acres in a new subdivision. If I bought it, Emily would not have to change schools. It had all the basics I needed, with an unfinished basement. I wrote up a cash offer with a large deposit right there on the spot below the asking price and demanded a 5-year new home warranty in return for a 4-day closing. The real estate broker thought I was being too aggressive. After leaving her, I went and got a new set of door locks. When I got back home, I texted Jessica and Emily to let them know where I was. It was then I began searching the rest of the house. I found no drugs, thank God, but I did find a stack of bearer bonds from a local bank worth $20,000 each, payable on demand. I turned on the early news and discovered that the local police had informed the TV station that they had done a search of both our residences and found many things that they had taken into possession that could be linked to the man responsible for the shooting. It was also noted that further charges were forthcoming. I believe they had made that announcement to take the heat off of us. After changing all the locks and resetting all the security codes, I continued the search. I found some very nice pieces of expensive jewelry I never knew my wife had. Finally, after clearing the house, I went back into the attic for a second look with a high-density, heavy-duty, semi-industrial light. That was when I discovered the additional bags of cash. They had been lined up against the farthest corner, hidden in the dark. These ones were also filled with cash. Using the card I had been given, I again called the detective, informing him of what I had found. Before they arrived, I removed a few bundles of cash out of each bag and left them in the attic for myself. I was beginning to believe that Tom had been selling drugs for years for a good profit. The detective took the 25 bags out of the house, shaking his head as he did it. I guess, like me, he was finding it hard to believe what I was finding. That was when I realized that if I had left the ledger book with the cash, it would have all been linked. "Officer, we have been their next-door neighbors for 20 years. Could he have been selling drugs for all those years?" I asked. Considering he lived under an assumed name for longer than that, I would say it was more than possible, he explained. There are numerous examples of women living with serial killers for years without knowing. Why would this be any different? I am really looking forward to questioning your wife about her relationship with him and for how long it went on. Then you should know that I learned late last night that Tom, as we call him, was my wife's high school best friend's husband before he married Jessica, I explained. His ex-wife, Ashley, may be flying in this Sunday to verify for herself what she's been told. He looked at me with a smile just as Jessica pulled into her driveway. He said, "This just keeps getting more interesting. Does his current wife know?" "Yes, and I'm about to go over and search her house completely," I said. "After last night's break-in attempt, we thought it better." "I will be prepared to be called again," the detective said with a smile. "I'm going to be interviewing Tom for the second time later today." The truck had a false floor that was filled with cocaine. He's gone for good. Jessica walked over and said, "Officer, good to see you again. You should expect a call from my lawyer regarding my husband's identity. He wants to use it to have my marriage annulled right away." Jessica watched as the detective drove away. As we followed his advice, we went through her house. If we found anything that looked like a drug, we flushed it. Better to be safe than sorry. Jessica began to pack up her clothing. She was moving into my son's apartment for safety reasons. Like my place, we found bearer bonds, which she packed to take with her. When we were done, she was pleased to find that we had found so very little. I told her I had put an offer in on a newly constructed house. I said I was going to use the bearer bonds in part to pay for it if my offer was accepted. She asked who I used as an agent, so I told her. "Do you think Sarah was working with him?" Jessica asked. "Or was he conning her as he did us?" "That's unknown because we have had each other's house keys for years," I pointed out. "He could have come in while we were all out of the house and hidden stuff at any time." What surprised me was that he wasn't smart enough to make a lot of his saved money legit. My daughter and I went to see Jason together. He opened up about everything. I learned that it had started around the last time I was due home, which I missed because I was in the middle of another drill. Jason was recovering slowly. He did not know if Jessica and he would get married, so they had decided as a couple to live together to see if, with the age difference, it would work out. "I can't argue with that logic, son," I said. "It sounds mature and well thought out." "Thanks, Dad," Jason said. "I appreciate all you have been doing for Jessica. Now that I can see it from your side, I don't know how you're handling it." "Son, I may not like what your mother did," I said, "but I was not there for her because of my chosen field. Loneliness led your mother elsewhere. If I ever have another relationship with the opposite sex, my lifestyle will have to be different." Emily looked at me, then said, "You have no anger or hate and don't blame her for what she has done. I want to kill her." "Look, I put work first and left the raising of both of you to her," I said. "With you growing up and becoming your own persons, she had no one left giving her the attention and love she apparently needed. I'm sad about what she has done, but I can't hate her for it. Nor will I condemn her even though it ended our marriage. Besides, she may have a lot more problems to face." "Like what?" said Jason. "If the police can connect her to what your Uncle Tom was doing," I said, "she'll be spending a long time behind bars, too. It never ceases to amaze me that most can't see what is right in front of them." The truth, I said to both of my children, had left them speechless. It was around 9:00 in the morning on Sunday that I received word that my offer for the house was accepted. A half an hour later, I was sitting in the broker's office giving her the funds for the huge deposit using some of the bearer bonds I had found when I got a text message which said, "Can we meet? I'm Sam's sister Ashley." I texted back, "Where are you?" She texted back, "At the airport." I replied, "Be there in 15 minutes. "You got an exceptionally good price on your new home," the broker said. I was surprised that he jumped on it. "That's why I asked you if he had sold any of them already," I said. Nothing like a sold sign to get others interested. With that done, I headed to the airport. As soon as I walked through the door, I saw her. I knew it had to be her because the small airport was empty as the plane had just taken off, heading back to Chicago with the passengers it had just picked up. Ashley was a very nice-looking lady. Her brown hair was styled in such a way that it brought out a softness in her face. She had a figure that was attractive and that she didn't have to try to enhance by wearing clothing that hid certain features. The feminine-looking blue jean outfit showed class without being extreme. My first impression of her was that she was a woman who was comfortable just being herself. She walked towards me and said, "You really haven't changed much from the pictures Sam uploaded and sent me." "Nice to meet you, Mr. Johnson. Call me Jim, please," I said, offering her my hand. We went into the airport restaurant and sat at a table. I offered to buy her an early lunch, and she agreed. For the first little while, we just sat talking, getting to know a little about each other. She noticed that I was not wearing a ring. I told her I never wore it when I was on the rigs, and when I had learned from my daughter of my wife's affair, saw no reason to ever put it on again. I learned that after her divorce, she had taken back her maiden name. We were in the middle of our early lunch when the last plane of the morning arrived from Chicago. Ashley and I were sitting at a window seat that allowed us to watch the unloading passengers walk through the gate. It also gave us an unlimited view of the small airport's open area. The waitress had just refilled our coffee cups when I spotted Sarah coming through the gate. I raised up my hand and waved. Ashley turned to look back to see who I was waving at and saw the two of us together. She just stopped in shock as her face turned pure white. I knew she had not read the local rag online, so she had no clue as to what was really going on. As she adjusted to the new reality, we watched as the detective walked up to her and introduced himself by displaying his badge. We watched as he escorted her to pick up her luggage. "She didn't have a clue that you were in town, did she?" Ashley said. "No, we deliberately hid that fact from her," I said. "Whatever she had been planning to do to resolve the issue has been thrown out the window. She's about to learn about the cash, the drugs, and the ledger book that was found in Jessica's and my house." "Can I have the privilege of handling your divorce case?" Ashley asked. "It will be fun taking her down. The fact that my ex and she are together has raised a lot of questions about everything we did together back then. Will the office allow you to fly back and forth while you're handling it?" I asked. "I run my own divorce firm out of my house," Ashley said. "Besides, I am going to be here dealing with my deadbeat ex anyway." I guess I smiled because she said, "I guess we have a deal. If you have a printer, we can write it up today." We took her luggage and threw it in the back of my truck. I told her that her ex-husband was in the county jail over in Jackson. She said she would like to talk to him, so I drove her over and waited for her while she went in. It took her about an hour before she came out. "He was shocked to see me," Ashley said. "He asked how I found him, and I said it was thanks to you." I then told him that the police had gone through his house and yours, taking all the drugs and monetary items found. I disclosed that they had found the ledger that Sarah wrote. His face went white. I looked at her and smiled bigger than before. Taking my cell phone, I called the detective. He answered on the first ring. I told him what I had learned and how he informed me that he would get a handwriting comparison done to see if it linked her to the drugs, but not the cash, because the ledger was their contact list of who they supplied and who they bought from. "So my soon-to-be ex was in on it all along," I said. "That's going to make it easier to get the divorce done. She is going to need her share for legal bills." "Yes, it does. We will be charging her later today as an accessory," the detective said. "That means it won't be until Tuesday at least before she gets a bail hearing." With that done, we headed back to my place to start drafting the divorce petition. On the way, I explained how our finances had been set up most of our married life. "Smart move on both your parts," Ashley said. "By having separate savings accounts, we can argue that it was not brought into the marriage." We sat down as soon as we got home, and she started working on the divorce petition while I started a pot of coffee. I sent her an email of the images Jessica had provided me. I told her I did not want the house because of what had been going on. Ashley asked if Sarah would have enough to buy me out. I said based on how we split the household fund, she should. It took us about another 2 hours to reach the point where we were ready for printing. After giving her the access code, I went and turned it on. Just as we were sorting out the copies and getting them ready to file them with the county court on Tuesday, my daughter returned from being out with her friends. For the two of them, there was an instant attraction. After introductions, I explained to my daughter who she was. "Emily, I want you to meet Ashley Lynn Douglas," I said. "Her family still lives in the village of Dutchtown." "Ashley, this is my daughter Emily," I said, "who will be moving into my new house with me next week once we have bought the furniture." Emily's eyes got huge with excitement as she jumped into my arms, hugging me tight before saying, "What did you buy?" "A newly built house with 3 bedrooms, an open floor plan, a 2-bay garage with a ground-level unfinished basement and a raised patio deck. There is only one problem with it." "What's that, Dad?" Emily asked. "It's not landscaped," I said, "so I will be looking at the price of a pool after closing on Tuesday." Her eyes lit up big time. Emily had wanted a pool for years. My reason for not doing it was I was not going to ruin the landscaping we had already done. Since it was just about supper time, I asked them where they wanted to go. Both of them decided on Ruby Tuesdays because of their huge salad bar. After supper, we drove her over to Enterprise Car Rental so she could get a vehicle. Emily asked Ashley if she wanted to go look at furniture with us on Monday. Ashley said she would love to, so that is what we did. I was sitting in the courtroom on Tuesday watching the charges being laid out before the judge for the man known to me as Tom Carson and my wife. Bail was denied for Tom. My wife's bail was set at $600,000, which meant that she had to come up with 10. Ashley walked up to her and served her on my behalf and then served her ex-husband for back support. When Ashley walked back to me, she took my hand into hers. I knew that both Tom and Sarah had to have noticed. Together, we walked out, leaving them with their thoughts. Earlier that day, I had dropped the rest of the bearer bonds needed to finalize the purchase of the house. Ashley had filed and paid the court fees for my divorce. At 4:00 that afternoon, I would have finalized the purchase of my new home. I had just come out of the land title office with the transfer done and with the interest from the bearer bonds in a check form in my hands when Ashley called. She had found a letter on her car rental that was sitting at her parents' property. It was a demand note. They were holding my daughter Emily and wanted everything I had that had not been turned over to the cops. My response was to come in the same manner as they had sent it. I told Ashley to say I would meet them in the Trail of Tears State Park at midnight tonight, giving the geological code for the spot where I wanted to meet them. Going home, I thought about it for a few. I grabbed a few small containers of propane and attached one to a welder's hand torch, placing it into my truck. I dug out the old tent I hadn't used in years and tossed it in along with my crossbow. It wasn't long until I had my tent set up. I was there for the night. Taking my sports bag filled with the tools I needed, I headed into the darkness. The spot I had picked out was along the mighty Mississippi at the edge of a cliff. Years ago, the state had railed it off, making it a viewing area of the river. From that viewpoint, it was straight down to the river once you went off the edge. I tied the sports bag filled with paper to the railing and hung it over the edge. To get the bag, you would have to lean over against the railing. It took me 3 hours to cut the bolts out so that there was nothing left to hold the railing in place. I lucked out because it started to rain. I hid, watching the trail. I saw one person coming in. Using night vision eyeglasses, I saw a detailed image of the man's face. He and his brothers lived near Dutchtown and were friends of Tom Carson. I had to ask myself if he was part of the drug ring. I waited for half an hour after the time to make sure he hadn't been followed. The landing was lit up with the brightness of a full moon. The rain had passed through, leaving the area wet. Then I stepped into the clearing behind him. "This is the way it's going down, Rick," I said as I turned on a high-intensity light focused on the bag. "What you want is attached to the railing. It's yours once your brothers drop off my daughter at where my lawyer is staying. Once my lawyer has called me, I will lower my crossbow and leave," I said. "If I don't agree?" Rick said. "I put an arrow in the middle of your throat and go after the rest of your brothers tonight," I said. Rick could not afford to call my bluff. He took out his cell phone and made the call. It was fun standing there watching him sweat. He could clearly see that my crossbow held 3 arrows. "Tom figured you had gone soft," Rick said. "He's planning an escape and needed the bearer bonds to get him and your wife out of town." "I guess you and your brothers are in the ledger book," I said. "How do you know about the ledger book?" Rick asked. I turned it over to the cops. "I guess it's just a matter of time until you're all going down. If my daughter is returned safely, you might want to consider using what's in the bag for yourselves to disappear with." Rick started getting panicked. Like all rubes, not knowing was getting to him. He asked if he could make another phone call. I nodded my head in approval. I listened as he said, "Drop off the girl and run. The police officers have what we wanted, the ledger book. If the girl has been touched, we are all dead. It's just a matter of when." It took another 10 minutes for my phone to ring. It was Ashley calling to confirm Emily had shown up and was unharmed. I shut off the lights and disappeared back into the darkness. Rick leaned into the railing to pull up the bag. With nothing holding it, his body weight pushed it over. With that done, I worked myself back to my tent and went to sleep for the night. It would take them 3 weeks to find Rick's body. Tom Carson did not take the news well. I drove into Ashley's parents' place early Wednesday morning. My daughter ran out to greet me. I was invited in for a huge breakfast and learned a few things. Our county sheriff was retiring. Sam and Ashley's father, I learned, was a big shot in the local Democratic Party. Over breakfast, I said I should run for the position. He asked if I would be willing to start the state courses to qualify for it. I said yes. "Well then, I think you have officially begun your run for the office," he said. The look of pride in my daughter's eyes said it all as she spoke. One thing I learned about my dad is that when he sets his mind to something, it's done. I handed my daughter my cell phone and told her to listen to the conversation that I had recorded with her mother last Sunday morning. It was interesting watching the four of them as they listened to it. My daughter said, "Mom was never going to be honest with you, was she?" I said, "Nope." I have begun to wonder if it was she who got Tom back into the drug business using the money I earned to finance it. That revelation by me surprised them all. To be honest, it did me too. So we are all on the same page. I think that what has transpired since Ashley found the note should be kept to ourselves, I said, because things did not turn out the way that Tom and Sarah wanted them to. With that said, they watched me as I called the detective to inform him that Tom Carson was going to attempt to break out in the next couple of days. If it was successful, I told him the two lovers would run. The detective said, "In seriousness, you should have become a cop yourself because with your ability to find out things, you would have been a good one." We were on our way back to Jackson when my cell rang. It was my soon-to-be ex, Sarah. "I will be out on bail in 2 hours," she said. "I was wondering if I could get access to the house. Ashley will drive your car over to the Love Nest and hand you the key to it and the new keys for the house. Emily and I should have moved most of what we wanted out of the house. The rest we will take when you're at work this week," I said. I hung up the phone and said, "Ashley, if you don't mind, most of the new furniture is being delivered today, and they have been paid to set it up. Do you mind being the one to supervise where it is supposed to go?" "I would love to," she responded. "If I remember, the appliance dealer will be there by 10. The 3 furniture companies sometime after that. Emily and I dropped Ashley off first. Both of them were getting their first view of the new house. They loved the open floor plan and the size of the place. Emily picked out which bedroom was going to be hers. She loved the fact that hers had her own bathroom and walk-in closet. "Dad, should we take pots, pans, and the basic stuff from the house?" she asked. I thought about it for a second and said, "No, let's have a fresh start. Once we have packed what personal items we want and have brought it back here, I will take over, and Ashley and you can go shopping for what the house needs." "Thankfully, most of the windows have built-in blinds," Ashley pointed out. "That will give you privacy until you get curtains." Emily and I were just leaving. Ashley and I were saying goodbyes when my son hollered, "Dad!" Jessica and he had just come out of the house across the street. They walked over, and I introduced the 3 of them to each other. It was interesting to see Jessica and Ashley sizing each other up. If you looked past their skin color, it became apparent that in build they were very much alike. I now understood why I was so interested in Ashley. Before going back to the house to pack our clothes, I went to the bank and opened a new checking account by transferring funds from my savings. I got new debit cards for Emily and me. I also paid off my credit card balance and had my company paycheck rerouted to it. The wardrobe boxes I had picked up made packing and moving easy. It took only a couple of hours to load them. At the bottom of one of my boxes, I put the bearer bonds I had kept. I took a few minutes to go into the attic and gather up the 50 bundles of 50s I had kept. Emily had to take her laptop, so I reminded her to change all her passwords, just in case. After I had unloaded the wardrobe boxes, the ladies were off. I spent the time moving out the boxes our furniture came in to form a burning pile in the dirt in the front yard. I called ATT to get the internet in. The ladies returned with a truckload of stuff, just as the delivery drivers were leaving. The master bedroom was set up, so was Emily's. The living room and family room were organized. The wooden table and chairs were in place in the open area inside of the kitchen, which even had a counter that we could sit and eat at if we were wanting to. Each room had the basics to start our new home. All that was needed was the internet to get the TV to operate. If we needed to, we could always watch Pluto TV off of the laptop if there was free Wi-Fi in the area. After we unloaded the truck, which was packed full of everything but the kitchen sink, Ashley and I went over to my old house and got Sarah's car and drove it over to her. I watched Ashley walk in and waited for about an hour before she came out. When Ashley climbed into the truck, I asked her, "Did you get some of the answers you were looking for?" "Not really," Ashley said. "They did not have a relationship when my husband and I were together. They got involved afterward. I learned that she was planning to divorce you once Emily had finished school. They have been lovers for about 5 years," Ashley went on. "Robert has been selling drugs the whole time you have known him." Sarah claims she had no idea what was in your house, but I don't believe her. I recorded the whole conversation thanks to Emily, who synced her phone with mine. "Do you think we should send the file to the detective?" I asked while driving. "Yes, I think we should," Ashley said with a giggle. "Am I reading you right in that you want to see where our relationship could go?" "I thought we had already started working on that," I said. "Even your parents saw the attraction." Ashley slid over beside me and said, "KFC or fish and chips was Emily's suggestion for supper." We picked up KFC before heading back to the new place. Emily had been a busy beaver while we were gone. She had already washed one set of sheets and had the second in the washer to make our beds up. Most of the groceries were put away and had the dishwasher running, putting our dishes through a quick rinse and dry to sanitize them. I was pleasantly surprised they had picked up 2 bottles of sour mash and some Coke, so we each had a drink as we ate at the table for the first time. After dinner, I went up to the master bedroom and put my stuff away. I had unpacked all the boxes and turned to my suitcase, which I had brought back with me. I unpacked my shaving brush and cup from my suitcase and thought to when my grandfather had given me that old cup. To get a decent brush, you had to order it online. He had been given it by his grandfather. I would, if I was alive, pass it on to mine. The ladies came in to make the queen-size bed and to put the towels in the master bedroom with the mats and small garbage container. They had even bought an alarm clock radio for my nightstand. The small lights matched the bedding perfectly. I laughed because they laid down 2 narrow carpets on each side of the bed. Emily, knowing my taste, had even got me my shower and body soap and shampoo. I hauled down the boxes and took them out to the burn pile. I saw that the ladies had a few more empty boxes, so I took them out too. The kitchen was all set up. I had to go through all the cupboards to see the setup. The new coffee pot and toaster sat on the counter. The new microwave was in its spot. I was pleased with how it was coming together. The ladies ran down to take up the items to do Emily's room, bringing with them a few bags I hadn't seen before. It took about another hour before they were all done. Being a nice evening, I went out with my lighter and lit the burn pile up. It was interesting to watch the flames rise into the nighttime sky. I was so lost in thought that I almost missed the call coming through on the cell. It was my soon-to-be ex. "It's all gone," she said, "from both places. Where is it?" "Best call the detective and ask him," I said with laughter. "You knew," she said, "so how did you get Emily back?" "Best ask Rick or his brothers that if you can find them," I said. The silence on the other end said it all. I ended the call and put the cell back in my pocket. The phone rang. It was my son, Jason. "Dad, we bought the house across the street. Mom called and wants to talk. Just so you know, I told her where to go and how to do it. She was not impressed, so expect her to blame you for that too." We talked for a few minutes more. He had a few questions about Jessica's and Ashley's relationship going forward. I pointed out that the common bond we both needed to stress was that they were both used by him and let them work it out between themselves. After having a smoke, I figured the fire had burned down enough that I could leave, as most of the cardboard had burned. I headed back into my new house to hear the washer running. Emily approached me and said, "Good night. I will lock the door when I go to drive Ashley home, I said. You should have seen the look on my daughter's face because it left me in total puzzlement. Ashley came down the stairs wearing a new nightgown and housecoat. Then I said, I better go have a shave and a shower. It was her clothing that was in the washer. I now knew why my daughter had the look she did. It was a knock on the door that woke me up. My daughter needed a ride to school. I got dressed and met her at the front door. Emily had a wide smile. Dad, you haven't looked this happy in years, she said. I'm happy for you. I dropped her off, saying I would be back to pick her up. It was nice to come home and relax for the first time since I had left the rigs. I had nothing pressing to do besides cuddling Ashley, which, believe me, I did lots of. ATT showed up around lunchtime and installed the internet. Ashley's father and mother showed up with Ashley's rental car and clothes around 1. Shortly after that came a photographer who took professional pictures of me for signage. George Douglas figured they would have the signatures to register my run by the end of the week. I gave him $5,000 towards my campaign in cash. Ashley took her mother for a tour of the new house. Glenda loved what Ashley had started to do with it to make it her own. I learned from them talking that she had already been applying her style when she helped us pick the furniture out. George, I asked, did I ever have a chance to be honest when she came home on Tuesday night? He said, I was in complete shock when she said I met the man I'm going to be spending the rest of my life with. When she came down on Wednesday after looking up the coordinates in Google Maps, she said, Dad, Harold is taking the advantage away from whoever was holding Emily. It was around 1 a.m. that she showed up unharmed. Emily explained that she did not know what happened, but those holding her were very scared and dropped her off fast after receiving a second phone call. He continued, she could tell by the way they interacted that they were related. It was Rick Klein and his brothers, I said. Even in high school, they were known to be bottom feeders. When he was faced with a loaded crossbow with 3 arrows less than 10 feet from him, his attitude changed. I gave him one chance release or die. He thought about it for a few, so to put pressure on him, I said, call your brothers and tell them I'm coming. I can honestly say he was still alive when I left him. What about now? George asked. Time will tell, I replied. Who knows what the future will bring? A smile came across Ashley's father's face as he said, You're old school, Jim. Welcome to the family. I'd be proud to have a grandson from you. From that statement, I knew all I needed to know about the man who sat across from the table from me. He was just as old school as I was. Each of us was like the James brothers who had become larger than they were in life. In our walk in life, we would do what was needed to be done. We were as tough as the Missouri red mud. It had been 8 months since I came home. We were all watching the local station for the results to come in. My parents, Ashley's parents, Jessica and Jason, who had just gotten married, were taking turns holding my newborn grandson in their arms. The 3 of us, Sarah and the man known to us as Tom, had been sentenced to life without parole. My divorce had been finalized. My former employer, using the shares I owned and my company retirement fund, had given me a full retirement early. I would die, and they would still owe my estate money. George was tickled pink because I was leading in the polls quite comfortably. 3 days earlier, the police department had returned to me the found money. I had been escorted by them to deposit over $5 million into the bank. Emily had gotten her swimming pool. Ashley now had 4 staff operating out of the basement of our home, and her new location was becoming quite successful. I walked over and knelt in front of Ashley before we joined our supporters in the election celebration and said, "Will you marry me?" When she said yes, I slid the ring on her finger. At that same moment, the news declared me as the winner. George was as proud as a peacock in full bloom, not only because of our official engagement, but also because there was a new sheriff in town. Thank you for tuning in. What would you do if you discovered a loved one's shocking secrets? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible stories.